Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. All right, this is the House Rules Committee. This hearing happened today, June 29th, 2026. I just got off work, so I'm about to dive into this, so feel free to hang out, share your opinions. And without further ado, this is the beginning of it. It's about 6 hours long, so I'm going to sit here till the end. I got hella weed, I got coffee, I'm posted up. Got snacks, let's go.
Ready? Good afternoon. The committee will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess at any time. Today, the Rules Committee is convening to consider three measures: H.R. 8800, H.R. 8884, and H.Res 1383. First, we turn to H.Res 1383, a resolution highlighting the success of common sense tax policies that have made an overwhelmingly positive impact upon the lives of hardworking Americans and their families. It was almost 1 year ago here in this very room where we spent almost 21 hours discussing one of the most transformational pieces of legislation in a generation, H.R. 1. These are the policies that our Republican majority has championed and continued to champion. Almost 1 year ago, every single Democrat in the House voted to raise taxes on the American people. House Republicans did not. Instead, House Republicans passed legislation to permanently increase the standard deduction, eliminate taxes on tips and overtime, permanently increase the child tax credit, create and fund Trump accounts to help children begin saving for their future, and much, much more. Some are very quick to write off the successes and the prosperity that was unleashed thanks to the Working Families Tax Cuts Act. But the fact of the matter is that Americans are reaping the benefits as they should be. 97% of tax filers received a tax cut this year. Working families making between $15,000 and $30,000 are seeing a 21% tax cut, the largest of any income group. And an American family of four generally will not have any federal income tax liability on the first $73,000 they earn. I look forward to hearing about the additional benefits from the transformational legislation from our panel today. Next, H.R. 8800, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2027, is the keystone of Congress's mandate to provide for the common defense of the nation. Our panel from the Armed Services Committee will speak about this momentarily and monumentally important legislation at length, and I'm going to highlight a few portions that are particularly pertinent at the outset. On waste, fraud, and abuse, this legislation builds upon the strides made in fiscal year 2026 to streamline operations and cut nearly $30 billion in wasteful programs that spend taxpayer dollars in a very haphazard manner. Further, it creates a new task force and provides new authorities to eliminate fraudulent payments and achieve a full and clean audit within 24 months.
Hey, what's up, Mark? What's up, Dank? How's it going? Happy Tuesday, happy Monday to everyone out there.
Our 8800 provides our nation's service members with a 5 to 7% pay raise, and couples.
Yeah, I don't know who's older, her or Chuck Grassley.
Couples that increase with improved and strengthened benefits for military families that relate to housing.
One thing's for sure, is this lady makes me want to smoke a bong load. So I'm going to smoke a bong load to help me get through her opening statement here. All right. That should make her a little more interesting.
And access childcare. It also allocates the resources necessary to maintain a strong posture of defense and deterrence against our nation's adversaries and the continued threats that they pose to the United States. The need for this legislation could not be greater. I look forward to our colleagues from the Armed Services Committee sharing their thoughts and insights with us here today on why this is the case. H.R. 8884, the Removing Barriers to Work for Disabled Americans Act, Mr. Scott's bill, would amend Title II of the Social Security Act to reauthorize demonstration authority for the Disability Insurance Program. This legislation works to empower Americans with disabilities by restoring the Social Security Administration's authority to run voluntary pilot programs to test policies that reward work instead of punishing it. It would ensure that no individual who is disabled and has a desire to work who participates in these programs will see a reduction in their personal income as a result of attempting to better. Those who are disabled and want to join or remain in the workforce should have the opportunity to do so without having to worry about whether their disability benefits will just disappear. This legislation is about upholding fairness and opening the door to opportunity.
Hey, what's up, Kat? Oh, yeah, for sure. I think her name's Virginia Fox, yeah. She's another MAGA politician with no spine. Just loyal to the orange man. What's up, Boot? Looks like I'm winning the war on drugs. Been winning the war on drugs since Nixon declared it in 1973.
Well-intentioned, and I believe will make a positive impact upon many Americans. With that, I look forward to the conversations we'll have today here in the Rules Committee. And I now yield to the ranking member for any comments that he wishes to make.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I want to begin by, first of all, wishing you a happy birthday.
All right, finally. Oh, wow, it's her birthday? What is she, 100 years old, 110 years old now? All right. We got Jim McGovern, a real politician. This guy's a solid dude right here, Jim McGovern.
Thank you, sir.
And I would sing, if you've ever heard me sing, it would clear this room in a nanosecond. So I'll spare you.
So you're going to be much nicer today.
I will be. I promise you, I want to be as succinct as I possibly can, so that you can go out and celebrate tonight. That is the goal, right? To get you out of here at a decent hour. But having said that, I don't envy you today because cleaning up the mess Republicans left last week cannot be easy. Now, we had a bipartisan housing bill ready to be signed. A rare, overwhelmingly popular bill that might actually help people afford a place to live. Republican leaders were publicly taking a victory.
Oh yeah, Donald Trump had a press conference today in the White House, the Oval Office, and a reporter asked him about, what's up? Why aren't you going to sign that House bill that everyone wants? That's like bipartisan, and he called it a big yawn. What a doofus.
On TV, just as Donald Trump blew the whole thing up, saying he would refuse to sign the bill unless Congress also changes the rules on voting so that Republicans can legally kick registered voters off the rolls. I I mean, they are holding affordability hostage so they can try to rig the next election. Are you kidding me? Imagine explaining that back home. Sorry, your rent is too high. You can't afford a mortgage. Congress did pass something that might help, but Donald Trump feels his power matters more than your housing costs. I mean, you can't make this BS up. Business stalled in the House. The rule got pulled. The floor shut down. Members were sent home early. And once again, the American people got a front row seat to Republican dysfunction. You guys control the House. You control the Senate and the White House and the Supreme Court. And you still can't govern, which brings us to today. We are meeting on a defense bill with $1 trillion price tag, a bad Social Security disability bill, and yet another resolution celebrating Republicans for their big ugly bill. Not bills to lower costs or raise wages or make life easier, but $1 trillion defense bill, a dangerous Social Security bill, and a Republican self-esteem exercise. On NDAA, I will say that better pay for service members matters, better housing matters, better support for military families matters. But this bill authorizes more than $1 trillion for defense and wars at a time when Donald Trump has made it clear that he is perfectly happy to start an illegal war to kill 13 American service members. I think giving that much money to Pete Hegseth is nuts. Then there is H.R. 8884. This bill has broad authority over Social Security disability insurance to an administration that has already shown us exactly how it treats programs working people rely on. Speaker Johnson has said Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid need to be adjusted and fixed. We all know what that means. It means...
You're wrong, Charles. You're wrong. There's only been 10 documented cases in the last 50 years of somebody voting illegally. And those statistics come from the right-wing organization called the Heritage Foundation. So you're more likely to get struck by lightning twice than find somebody voting illegally.
And we see that in the big ugly bill. If anything, we ought to be expanding Social Security disability insurance so that the millions of Americans that depend on it can survive the high costs of the Trump economy. And then we have the second resolution this year that celebrates Republicans' big ugly bill. Who's for this? Nobody in America is sitting at their kitchen table now saying, you know what would really help if Republicans in Congress spent more time congratulating themselves. Republicans want applause for a bill that cut food assistance. It cut food assistance. It kicked people off of health care. It exploded the debt and handed more tax breaks to rich people and big corporations. Meanwhile, the American people are getting screwed. And all Republicans offer them is a lousy resolution congratulating themselves and more Trump drama. People need this place to get serious. Instead, Republicans have us here again, cleaning up after another meltdown and pretending that this is business as usual. It is not. It is embarrassing, and the American people deserve a hell of a lot better. And again, I will end as I began, promising the...
Nah, deport all the MAGA cult members back to Jonestown. Make America great again.
That we will be as succinct and to the point as possible, because it is your birthday, and I think you deserve a nice night. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. Without objection, any prepared statements that our witnesses may have will be included in the record. I now welcome our panel.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Vic Morrison? How's it going? Just watching this, the opening statements of the 6-hour-long hearing that happened today. So this hearing happened today, June 29th. I just got off work. I would have watched it earlier, but I have to put in overtime hours because to keep up with Trump's outrageous cost of living. But nonetheless, this hearing happened today, so this is fresh. So appreciate anyone that hangs out and interacts and shares your opinions. Hope you're all having a good Monday.
Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Smith from the House Committee on Armed Services. Your full statements will be submitted for the record. We ask you summarize your statement in 5 minutes. Chairman Rogers, I welcome your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Fox and Ranking Member McGovern, for having us here today. And I want to thank you and your staff for helping us get the FY 27 NDA to the floor. Your staff's been great to work with. I also want to thank Ranking Member Smith, who's been an awesome partner in this process.
Nah, man, you're smoking crack. Under Biden, we were all eating steak and lobster. Under Trump, we got RFK Jr. approved liver and screwworm.
I'm very proud of the work we did to put this bill together and report it out in a bipartisan manner again this year. Throughout our committee's budget hearings this year, we've heard a consistent theme, that being that the defense industrial base, the foundation of our military power, is in deep trouble. Over the last 30 years, the defense industrial base has atrophied significantly. In the 1990s, we had 51 prime defense contractors. Today, there are only 6 remaining. Our global.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Pache? Hey, long time no see. How's it going? How you been? Pache in the house. It's going good. Walked my dog around the neighborhood and then about posting up now. Gonna watch this hearing right here. How have you been? Long time no here. Hope you're doing well. Carlos right here posted up. We walked to this like mom and pop little like burger spot down the street, and we got a pastrami sandwich. It was pretty tasty. So that's what we had for dinner. I'm about to make a coffee right now.
Mission stockpiles are low, and we no longer have the surge capacity to rapidly replenish them. Our supply chains are too reliant on our adversaries, particularly China, and we have very little industrial capacity to mine, refine, or process critical minerals we need for our defense. And our skilled workforce is shrunk. All of this is happening as our country faces the most challenging.
It looks like Carney from Canada. He's the new leader of the free world. He's putting in some moves. Carney from Canada.
Environment since World War II. Our adversaries are working together to build modernized forces focused on undermining our security and influence around the world. We are being outpaced in shipbuilding.
Yeah, I like Carney. Carney's a good guy from Canada. I forget his first name. What is he, like a prime minister? Prime Minister Carney?
For sonics and autonomous systems, we must take action to address these problems before American deterrence erodes any further. The FY20.
Hey, what up, Thorne? How's it going?
FDA takes action. This year's bill is focused on revitalizing the defense industrial base. We're giving industry this.
Oh yeah, Justin Trudeau. I forgot about that guy.
It needs to invest, expand, and produce faster. We're cutting needless regulations that prevent innovative businesses from working with the Pentagon. And we're creating new jobs and helping Americans build advanced technical skills. In addition to revitalizing the defense industrial base, the NDA meets other critical needs. We are raising pay for service members and improving housing, education, and child care for military families. We're strengthening our nuclear deterrence and missile defense while maintaining a strong posture to deter.
Oh yeah, I think it's Mark Carney. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he always he's definitely way above Trump when it comes to like, being a good person.
And we're prioritizing the development of innovative technologies that will give our warfighters the edge in future conflicts. To support these policies, we're authorizing a $1.15 trillion in discretionary funds.
Hey, what's up, Alan?
And matches the president's historic budget request. For the first time in 40 years, we've been presented with a budget that accounts for the true cost of American deterrence. This top line begins to reverse the damage caused by decades of underinvestment in the U.S. military. But we understand with this historic investment comes an even more urgent need to guard against waste, fraud, and abuse. This bill does so by cutting nearly $30 billion in wasteful spending, reducing fraudulent payments, and providing new authorities to ensure the Pentagon achieves a full and clean audit within 24 months. Peace through strength doesn't begin on the battlefield. It begins in our factories, our depots, and our shipyards. This bill reflects our commitment to rebuilding that foundation. This is a strong bipartisan bill that puts our warfighters first, and I urge all of our members to support it. Now you'll back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and happy birthday. Hope it's a good one. Well, first of all, I want to thank Chairman Rogers for his leadership of the committee. I have no complaints with the process that led us to this point. We had, over 1,000 amendments submitted. We had robust debates over many of them, and we put together what was a pretty fair bipartisan product out of committee. There was one big but, which I'll get to in a minute. But I think the chairman outlined a lot of the strengths of this bill, certainly focusing on getting an audit, getting after waste, fraud, and abuse so we can have a more efficient and effective Pentagon is enormously important. This bill continues to do that. This bill also builds off of last year's acquisition reform, which was the greatest acquisition reform that has ever been done by Congress. What does acquisition reform mean? It basically means innovate faster at scale. Be able to buy equipment that we need in a quicker fashion so that we can get the new and improved equipment that we need in a better and more effective way. And we've certainly built on that. There's strong support for the troops in here, as a number of people have noted. We also, on a number of occasions, note how important it is to maintain partnerships and alliances with NATO, certainly, but partners elsewhere. There were a couple of amendments that were added that I also think really strengthen this bill. One is to restore collective bargaining for Department of Defense employees. And another one was to go back to honoring what the Base Renaming Commission did in terms of renaming bases that had previously been named for white supremacist Southern generals. So there's a lot that's good in it. The one big but is the 1.15 trillion. It's actually more than a trillion. It's 1.15 trillion, and that's just the base. As we have heard, Republicans plan to add $350 billion to that through a reconciliation package, though, as Mr. McGovern notes, they don't seem to be able to pass much of anything, so I'm not sure that's going to happen. But then you've got also the supplemental, which is asking for $80 billion. You throw all of that together, and what we're talking about is a $1.6 trillion defense budget. That is an over 50% increase in last year's budget. Now, I think the chairman makes a fair point. We face an incredibly complex threat environment. China is rapidly building up their military. Russia is increasingly aggressive, not just in Ukraine, but throughout Europe. We've seen what Iran and terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah are doing in the Middle East. North Korea is still crazy, and they still have a nuclear weapon. There's a lot to deal with out there, but our budget has to fit within some sort of fiscally responsible package. If you ask the average person, if you ask the economists what the greatest threat to U.S. national security is right now, they would say our fiscal picture. $40 trillion in debt. That is becoming very difficult to sustain as interest on the debt increases year by year. We cannot afford a $1.6 trillion defense budget. We just can't. We need a national security policy that reflects what we can actually spend money on. And I think we can do that. We've got partners and allies that can help us meet those challenges. We can also invest in equipment that gives us an asymmetric advantage. We're seeing this on the battlefield. Ukraine being the best example. By the way, this bill also speaks out loudly in support of Ukraine's right to defend itself in support of their war with Russia, which I think is incredibly important. But Ukraine has developed very cheap technologies that has enabled them to stop in its tracks a vastly larger military. We need to develop that instead of thinking we can just buy absolutely everything as the solution to meet our national security needs. And it's also deeply ironic that of the three bills you have here, we have our, like I said, 1.6 trillion when you add it all up defense budget, and Republicans praising all of the tax cuts. And I don't disagree. The chairwoman's right. Pretty much everyone did get a tax cut, all right? But if you're not going to raise the revenue, you can't have a $1.6 trillion defense budget. I mean, I think one of the most hilarious things that happened in last year's Republican Congress, that's saying something, is you passed an increase to the debt of $4 trillion plus with all the tax cuts. And then shortly thereafter, you passed a balanced budget amendment, which is absolutely hysterical if you stop and think about it. It's like, we just want to act like we're being fiscally responsible. If we're going to have all those tax cuts, we're going to have to spend less money everywhere, and that includes defense. So as good as the overall bill is, I'm deeply concerned about the amount of money and the fiscal picture. Combining this with massive tax cuts, not to mention all of the other needs that we have, I think puts us on an unsustainable path, which will then jeopardize our national security in ways that go beyond just whether or not we can deter our adversaries. With that, I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. I'll defer my questions for a little bit. Ms. Fishbach, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for bringing the bill forward. I appreciate it because I think this bill includes many wins, not only for our national security, but for the people that defend it. And I think that's important to point out. It's been mentioned a couple of times about the increase in pay. And I just want to be clear that a vote against this bill is a vote against the increased pay for our service members. And I think, and maybe you just want to expand on that a little bit and explain what's really happening.
Yeah, in this bill, we support the president's request for 5 to 7% pay increase, 7% for junior enlisted, 6% for senior enlisted personnel, and 5% for senior officers. We also expand bonuses and special pays that we've been using to try to recruit more and keep more of our service members. And we increase their housing allowance, their special feeds allowance. We also authorize $1.8 billion for new barracks and family housing and increase housing allowance for high cost areas, and set deadlines for contractors to resolve housing complaints for service members. So this is a really family friendly bill.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned the housing. There's $25 billion for military construction and family housing. And I know you've probably been on more tours than I have when you take a look at the housing conditions and what's going on. And I think it's important that we are recognizing that now, because it hasn't been for years, really recognizing that we need to improve that for our service members. So not only the pay increase, but making sure they have the housing, decent housing that they need and the kind of level that they want. And I know that this bill also strengthens medical care for our troops, and it requires the DoD to focus on skills when hiring, rather than just education levels on resume, and it's increasing access to jobs and supplemental in education. And it's doing so much. It also includes helping advance small business participation within the defense industrial base. And so there's so much good going on in this bill that it's sad to see that people are opposing it, because it's really about making sure that we're doing the right things for not only our servicemen, but for the Defense Department in general, making sure we're advancing things. So yes, it does increase shipbuilding, it provides funding for shipbuilding and eliminating terrorists and developing new technology. But I think most important about this is we are really recognizing those service members and making sure that we support them, not just saying it, but doing it, making sure have their backs, and making sure that they have housing they need and the pay they need. And so I thank you for bringing this forward, and with that, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Fishbach. Mr. McGovern, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. So $1.6 trillion, trillion with a T. I mean,
if you add it all up,
yeah,
that's the 1.15 that's in the base, the 350 billion that they want in reconciliation, and the $80 billion supplement.
But $1.6 trillion, even Dr. Strangelove is impressed with that figure. That is huge, unprecedented. And, when we talk about national security, by the way, it's more than the number of bombs we have. People right now in this country are worried about whether they can afford groceries at the supermarket. They're worried about whether they can afford to fill their gas tank up. They're worried about, whether they can afford to send their kids to school or whether they can retire. And they're worried about the cost of housing. I want to read you a direct quote from President Trump. A reporter asked him, what are your plans for the housing bill? Because, as you know, we were supposed to take that up. And Trump's response was, I don't know. I think it's so unimportant compared to the Save America Act. So, just to be clear, he thinks that the housing affordability bill is, quote, unimportant compared to his election rigging bill. What am I missing here?
Well, that's a separate subject outside of the national defense area, but I will certainly say that it shows a sense of misplaced priorities. And when you look at what Americans are dealing with, the high cost of living, housing, education, food, energy, all of these things are major problems. Every single policy the Trump administration has put in place has been to drive the costs up. The tariffs, the war in Iran certainly has driven costs up. Canceling energy projects all over the country so that we have less energy because he doesn't like wind turbines apparently. So there is a lack of a focus on affordability without question.
And I think we all agree. I think there's unanimity that when it comes to making sure that those who serve in our military, those who work for our military, get a good, decent pay, they could raise a family. We're all for that.
Yeah, and let me be clear on this: spending money helps people. Which is not terribly surprising. But if you're going to spend this much money, you better be prepared to raise the revenue so you're not just sending us money.
Well, and also understanding that increasing people's salaries while housing costs are going through the roof, while gas prices are going through the roof, while food prices are going through the roof, doesn't necessarily make their life more affordable and allow them to address some of the challenges that our constituents face. I mean, Ranking Member Smith, what is the deal with this proposed Trump-class battleship? I mean, he wants a ballroom, he wants an arch, now he wants a battleship. I mean, is this a good use of resources, or is this another vanity project?
Well, I think it's another vanity. Well, it's partially a vanity project, and also then it's just a mistake. We're talking about building the largest battleship ever constructed. Now, we stopped building battleships near the end of World War II because they proved ineffective in World War II, which was some 80 years ago now. They're big targets, relatively slow moving. They bring firepower, but at great risk. And now Trump wants to build a battleship that's the largest ever. It's going to cost over $20 billion to build. And that's if we can build it. Let's keep in mind that, we have struggled to build a frigate on 2 occasions. We struggled to build a Littoral combat ship. Now we're going to build something roughly 15, 20 times larger. It's highly questionable whether or not we're going to build it. But when you see the cost estimates, $22 billion, as I always joke, take the over. And I'm pretty sure you're going to be easy money.
What the hell? Trump's trying to build like the biggest battleship now? Didn't Hitler try to do that with the Bismarck, and the Bismarck got sunk?
It gets more to the point of what I was talking about earlier. How can we meet our national security needs in a more cost-effective way? Iran was able to create an asymmetric advantage over us by placing the Strait of Hormuz at risk. And they don't need a lot to do that. They don't need a $22 billion battleship, okay? We need to be looking for those types of asymmetric advantages against our adversaries so that we can cost-effectively deter them. Part of that is building cheaper munitions. And I'll give you some good news. There's a lot of private investment right now in developing new munitions that are cheaper than the ones we have right now. Counter-drone measures. And all of that gets us to a more cost-effective way to meet our national security needs. A battleship does not. Do you know how many drones we could buy? How many missiles we could buy with $25 billion? It's staggering. So I think it's a huge mistake.
Just one final quick question, Mr. Rogers. I mean, do you have assurances that Republicans will bring this to the floor? I mean, we went through a similar exercise last week, and then it gets pulled at the last minute because some of your members are voting against, I guess, everything until they can get this election bill passed that they've been pushing. Do we have assurances that after we meet here and report this rule out, that this will actually indeed come up tomorrow?
My conversation with the speaker is that he intends to put this bill on the floor this week. Yes.
I thank you both, and I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGovern. Mr. Scott, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I have the privilege of serving on the Armed Services Committee with these two men. They both do a fine job. It is a committee that functions the way it is supposed to. And so I want to thank you for that. I know we've got staff here from both sides, and I wish every committee functioned the way the Armed Services Committee does. And I know that there were a lot of debates in there, and I know the vote was still a strong bipartisan vote, not as strong as it is maybe historically been, but I want to focus on one issue, if I can, Chairman Rogers, to explain to the American citizens why the revitalization of the defense industrial base is so important. And any general that you meet with will tell you that if you don't win in space, you lose the war today. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
And up to and until 2022, the United States of America, our citizens and our security, every satellite launch that we had done in a decade prior to that, my understanding is, happened with an RD-180, a Russian rocket. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And up to and until 2024, because we bought some additional rockets, because the leadership of the committee in a bipartisan manner saw this coming, and so we front-loaded the amount of rockets that we had until the U.S. industrial base could develop rockets so that we could launch our own satellites and no longer be dependent on the enemy of the United States to launch satellites. Is that a fair statement?
We saw it coming and we energized our launch capacity, and now we have multiple sources to launch. We are no longer relying on the Russian-produced RD-180.
I think we're all concerned about the amount of money that we're having to spend for national security, but I will tell you the bigger concern is not waking up secure. And what the rebuilding of the defense industrial base is, it's not an option. It has to be done. And I think that what we've done here, and again, I give both sides credit for this, and in a bipartisan manner, is to give the defense industrial base the signal that they need to bring the manufacturing of the supply chain, the whole supply chain, back, if not to the United States, at least to allied and treaty nations. So, Mr. Rogers, I'm not going to go a whole lot further. I do want to give you the opportunity to say a few words, if you'd like to, about any of the other key provisions of the bill. But again, I appreciate both you and Mr. Smith for the way you run the committee, and it's my privilege to serve with both of you on that committee.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize the bill that we have before you today and that we'll be voting on this week is not for 1.6 trillion, it's for 1.15 trillion. There will be a supplemental request in the appropriations bill. There will be a reconciliation request, I expect. Those may or may not happen. What we're talking about here is baseline funding, and it needs to happen. The whole point of peace through strength is to stay out of wars, is to deter aggression, and we can't help but recognize that we have lost the industrial strength that we need to maintain that capability. We won World War II because of our industrial might. We won the Cold War because of our industrial might. We are going to stay out of World War III if we can rebuild our industrial might. And this bill goes a long way toward ensuring that. That's what this is all about, trying to make sure we build the capacity to deter aggression from China in particular, but also from others. We can't help but acknowledge that our adversaries, all four of them, formed an axis of evil, and they are working together. They're helping each other. We have got to meet the moment, and this bill does that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the RD-180 is just one example of how we had become dependent on people that are our enemies. There are other
Trump is the Epstein of evil.
out there where we're dependent on China for certain chemicals and materials that we have to have, precious minerals. And so I look forward to continuing to work with the two of you to make sure that we're not dependent on our enemies. So with that, Madam Chair, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Ms. Scanlon, you're recognized.
I want to join my colleagues in wishing you a happy birthday as well. I wore blue in your honor.
Oh, thank you.
So Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Smith, I appreciate the bipartisan work that went into this NDAA. I would have to disagree with a little bit of the testimony. I think some would argue that strategic intelligence and proper use of our industrial base may be just as important as having that industrial base, because might alone isn't going to win the conflicts around the world, as I think we're seeing on a daily basis. There are a number of provisions in this bill that are long overdue. It expands access to contraception through TRICARE. It broadens coverage of assisted reproductive technologies for service members and their families. It protects the collective bargaining rights of our civilian defense employees. It also includes investments that are important in my district, including funding for 7 CH-47F Block II Chinook helicopters, manufactured very proudly in southeastern Pennsylvania. And these are all worthwhile investments. The problem with this bill is not all of the provisions, but certainly some of the misplaced priorities that have been loaded into it. We've already had extended discussion about the fact that this is a massive amount of money, $1.15 trillion, with an additional supplemental bill, possibly a reconciliation bill, adding up to $1.6 trillion in spending, just a massive, massive increase in defense spending, which, am I correct, Ranking Member? That's discretionary spending.
All defense spending is discretionary
All-
spending, yes.
Okay. Other than Social Security and some of our mandatory spending.
Well, sure, yeah, that's,
Okay.
but all defense spending is discretionary spending.
Right, so we do have a lot of discretion about how much and how we spend it.
Well, not to get overly technical here, but to a certain degree, it is all discretionary in the sense that if the entitlements are simply locked in, if we want to change the policy, we can change the policy. So it's a technical difference between discretionary and mandatory that
I'm just
isn't
so
worth
used
getting
to
into.
hearing about cuts to discretionary spending. I just wanted to make sure we're talking about the same thing here. So that is concerning. That's a lot of money towards defense, and some of it, this battleship, $1 billion, I think, in this bill for the $2 billion for the battleship that is supposed to cost maybe 20-ish once we get there. But in the descriptions we're seeing of it, the terms I'm seeing are, it's an obsolete, vulnerable kind of a proposition. The military is not asking for this. It requires unproven technology. Can you talk a little bit about this?
Sure. We don't 100% know what it is because it's on the drawing board right now, and it's something that we've never come close to, nobody's ever come close to building before. The contemplation is will be this massive power center, and you'll be able to move energy around, and have this massive battleship with all kinds of munitions on it.
Kind of like the Death Star in Star Wars?
Yeah, well, I won't go there, but yeah, kind of, in a similar way. And I can understand that. But when you look at what's going on in the battlefield right now, and I mentioned Ukraine and the way they've been able to make Russia vulnerable with drones, with very low-cost drones. Hezbollah, regrettably, is starting to have success with similar low-cost drones. This is what gives you an asymmetric advantage, and because those weapons are cheap and effective. So that's the way the whole world is going, and we decide we want to build the world's largest ship ever. That seems to be polar opposite. It's polar opposite of actually what we worked on in terms of acquisition reform. A lot of the acquisition reform is focused on, as I said, on innovating new technologies. How can you get a more cost-effective missile, a more cost-effective missile defense system, or drone defense system, or drones? So to put all of that money into one place is extraordinarily risky, and that assumes that we'll be capable of building it. We have major shipbuilding challenges right now, just meeting our traditional needs, which this bill helps address. And there's an amendment I know, the Ships Act, which would take it a little bit further, which I am supportive of. But it just seems to me like bigger and more expensive is the exact opposite of where we need to be going with our weapon systems right now.
Well, I mean, it feels like there's a little bit of an analogy as we're approaching at the end of the week, our 250th anniversary of the country, where the Brits in part were routed by asymmetric warfare. They came in with their large, massive troop movements, and the U.S. nibbled around the edges, and they lost a 13-state advantage in that war. So it feels like hewing to outmoded ways isn't so great. And then there's the cost aspect of it. Some of our experts are saying that this is going to cannibalize our defense budget with just directing so much funding to this boondoggle of a battleship. We're already seeing some of these vanity projects cannibalize other budgets like the National Park Service, et cetera. So I do think we should be very concerned about that, but I appreciate all the work you've put into this, and I'll yield back.
Thank you very much. I'm going to keep deferring my comments and recognize Ms. Leisure Fernandez for her comments and questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will refrain from singing to you because we want to make it nice and short, maybe short and sweet or short and sour, but at least spontaneous. Chairman Rogers, what was the NDAA budget when you first came into office?
I don't remember. It was 24 years ago.
Yeah, but you have an estimate?
I have no idea.
I actually looked it up because all told, the idea of 1.6 trillion, right, when we add everything up, it was 400 billion. 400 billion. So you are now asking us to approve an NDA that is 4 times higher than what it was back then.
I am.
You are.
And
And you're
asking.
really happy about that.
I'm very happy about it. I just hate that it's not more.
Yeah. Good.
Hey, Pache. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Hope you have a good night and hope to see you soon. All right, catch you later.
We are
What's up, Amber?
spending less than any of our 4 adversaries as a percentage of GDP on defense. And if we don't stop this madness, we're going to wind up in a war.
And well, we are in a war. You said we're going to end up in a war. We are in a war. But there is a war that is ongoing. Do you deny that there's a war ongoing?
I'm not denying that.
Okay, so there is a war ongoing, started by Trump, who said he was going to make sure we didn't get involved in foreign wars. And I take it you are against deficit spending.
I am for strong defense spending.
Oh, but you're fine with increasing
If we have to
the country's
spend
deficit.
in deficit to do strong defense spending, then that's what we have to do.
Right, and in fact, since you've come into office, every Republican president has increased
I like this lady right here. I don't know what her name is, but she always comes out cooking.
deficit through deficit spending. A lot of that on war.
I think every president has done that since I've
Every Republican president has increased the deficit, and every Democrat
don't doubt
president has decreased the deficit. It's actually true. And
What's up,
I
bud?
can hand you this
I
chart
have
if you'd
no
like,
doubt
but
you're telling it just like it is.
okay, we're telling it just like it is. Every Republican president has increased the deficit. Now, I think it's interesting, this idea that you mentioned earlier about how we won World War II. The reality is I just finished reading, and I'm not, I just finished reading a wonderful book, Doris Prince Goodwin book about the presidency during World War II. And what was key there was President during World War II got the support of the American people. Do you know what the support is of the American people for the Iran war?
I do not.
It is the majority of Americans, about 60%, opposed that war that Trump started, that we were spending $1 to $2 billion a day on. Do you know, have you ever, what's fascinating to me is this battleship that can cost billions. Has there ever been an instance where we've had a president choose to name a class of battleships after himself? Are you ever aware of that
I'm not
happening?
aware of one.
Ranking Member Smith, what do you make of a president who wants to spend taxpayer dollars that our children and grandchildren and we will have to pay for in the future because it's deficit spending, where he's naming it after himself? There was something kind of cringy and corrupt about that in my mind.
Yeah, well, there's 2 separate points which I want to make here. One, President Trump's focus on basically his name, his likeness, his power is authoritarian in a way that is deeply troubling. I think it undermines our representative democracy, and I think there's no question he is governing much more like an authoritarian dictator than like a democratically elected president of a constitutional republic. We could walk down 1,000 different roads on that one, which aren't directly related to the defense bill. I do want to get back to the spending issue, because I think it's important for people to understand the context here. The chairman is right. As a percentage of GDP, we are actually spending less now on defense than we have at any point since the end of World War II. I think it is important to remember that. Now, what has changed? Well, in the 40s, 50s, 60s, there was no Medicare. There was no Medicaid. We have massively increased spending in other areas, and as well we should. Okay, I don't think the chairman or anyone wants to get rid of Medicare or Medicaid. I certainly don't, or a lot of the programs that we expanded. It's more a matter of recognizing where we are. It is not the 1960s anymore, okay? We are not the sole dominant power in the world economically and militarily. We have a lot more competition and we have a lot more needs. So we have to be smarter about how we spend that money. And look, I mean, I don't know what the total budget's like, 7 trillion, something like that. Defense would be 12, 15% of that. So there's certainly other aspects to this. I keep harping on revenue. We're all very happy about cutting taxes, and we keep spending the money. Okay, to me, those two things have to add up. If you love tax cuts, then you shouldn't love a $1.15 trillion defense budget. Okay, the two things shouldn't go together. But we've all decided that we're going to suspend reality and truth and facts and just live in a fantasy world of basically being able to just, I guess, make the money. Well, we do make the money appear. It's just that we wind up owing on that. So it's a matter of having a fiscal picture that makes sense for today, not for 1950 or 1960 or 1970, but for the needs that we have today. And I think we are missing the mark by relying so much on having a massive defense budget to meet our national security needs.
Thank you very much. And I will point out that Democrats support the increases in pay and what we're doing with regards to our service members. As the representative for Cannon Air Force Base, I'm very appreciative of many aspects in this bill. But
look, we got a MAGA cult member in the house, Glenn Levy. Glenn Levy says Donald Trump is the best president ever. I swear, there always has to be that guy. Bet you're real fun at parties there, Glenn.
the concept of $1.6 trillion defense budget that's deficit spending that doesn't have the same, because we've been keeping part, right, where we have discretionary spending on other matters as well as on defense, and this is not the case. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Langworthy, you're recognized.
I have no questions at this time. I thank the witnesses for appearing.
Thank you very much. I do want to ask a couple of questions and make a couple of comments. Mr. Smith, you've talked a lot about our cutting taxes, but we know in every instance in the history of this country, from I think John F. Kennedy, when we cut taxes, revenues go up.
That's completely false.
That is not false.
No, it's completely false. Look, it doesn't go down by as much as you would have.
Hey, what's up, Porgy? Oh yeah, that state fair, what a disaster. Just another grift by the Orange Man. He probably pocketed like a quick $60 million from that state fair.
Did it too? But it's simply, I hear that argument over and over again, and it simply doesn't play out. We cut taxes in 2001, okay, significantly. And yes, as the overall growth, it grows just in general, even if you didn't do anything, but it grew by less than it would have if it cut taxes. If cutting taxes increased revenue, then the most effective tax rate would be 0, and we would have the easiest job in the world. Okay, you can't tell me that cutting taxes increases revenue, because it doesn't.
Okay, well, we're going to disagree on this. I think I'm right, so I'm going to move on. Mr. Chairman, I believe, and I don't know if you believe this, that the number one role of the federal government is the defense of this nation. We are are celebrating our 250th anniversary. And that is about our becoming a nation. And it's about our becoming a group of states who joined together to become the United States and to gain our freedom. And ever since then, we've worked on the defense of this nation. That's what we have done. And we emphasize the word defense because that's basically what we do. So I do think we can spend too much money on defense. I appreciate very much the acquisition reform that you mentioned, Mr. Smith, that was in our last year's budget. I worked a lot on that with people in my district who were providing services to the armed forces. That came to my attention many years ago. I worked hard on acquisition reform, and I was very pleased that we got acquisition reform, and I think we can do more. I agree with you, Mr. Smith, on that. But I think that we need to spend, as you have indicated, what it takes to keep us a strong nation. I think Ronald Reagan was right. We will remain a free country if we remain a strong country. That's the role of the federal government. And so I don't think 1.15 is too much to be spending. And I always get very frustrated with our Democrat colleagues when they speculate about what's going to happen. We hear a lot of speculation in the Rules Committee. So yes, there may be more spending in a Reconciliation 3.0, and I frankly think there probably should be. But that's the role of the federal government. Most of the money that we're spending is on automatic pilot on programs that could be supported by the states and the localities without the federal government involved, without the federal government wasting a lot of money by being involved in it. And so I think.
Has this lady ever heard about no taxation without representation? I mean, she looks like she should. She's old enough. She should have heard about it by now.
We're moving in the right direction. Let me ask you to talk a little bit more about the domestic industrial base, which you mentioned before. I have understood that too. You mentioned going from 50.
Hey, what's up, homies? What's up, Brett? What's up, Futu? How's it going?
Firms to as few as 6. Competition.
What's up, Mud Butters? Algae ice cream. That's hilarious. Man, if Trump came out with algae ice cream, the cult members would lick that up faster than they lick up Donald Trump's balls. What's up, James?
Innovation has been impacted. But most concerningly, these dynamics are happening at a time of increasing kinetic engagements and hot conflicts involving the United States. As you said.
Oh yeah, for sure. Donald Trump ruined, just like everything he ruins. He ruined our 250-year birthday.
Isn't the 1990s? You mentioned that yourself. Our allies are at the doorstep of invasion from our chief adversaries. The United States isn't facing attacks from proxies backed by Iran alone. So we now have the Iranian regime itself. So can you speak to how this bill offers the potential to jumpstart increased competition in the defense industrial base, provide the certainty they need to bring increased investment in market players? You alluded to it briefly.
Hey, what up, Captain Homer?
And secure our supply chains against unprecedented pressure against them.
Well, and I do want to remind the committee that of what my friend, the ranking member, mentioned, and that is defense spending is 12% of all federal spending. And if we don't get it right, none of the rest matters. We'll be free and safe. We won't have a country. But to your point, what we found in trying to help Ukraine, and I am as fierce a supporter of Ukraine as you'll find in Congress from the aggression from Russia, is that China, Iran, and North Korea have all been helping Russia in that effort as we have tried to help Ukraine push back against that aggression. But it was during that period when we were taking old stockpiles of munitions to send to Ukraine that we really realized that we didn't have the ability to replenish those aged weapons and munitions with new ones. And that's what kind of started us down this path. But what we have done, as you mentioned, we're down to just 6 prime defense contractors now. In order to help them recapitalize, we have guaranteed them 7-year contracts for production. We did that with the reconciliation bill that we passed in the current fiscal year. To send a demand signal to the markets, you can loan them money to make investments in new plant and equipment to help us build. But we've also got to start working on the supply chain. That's what we do in this bill. We have got to have more capacity to supply these primes and hopefully invite more companies in to the.
This guy, this guy's tie is hilarious. Looks like he just came from the circus. I guess he's part of the MAGA cult. The circus tie.
Ecosystem. We also have to reshore, onshore mining and processing of critical minerals and elements that we need for the stuff. We have a whole plethora of things that have to be done to grow the defense industrial base, and that's what this bill.
Oh, is that what? Oh, all right. I was thinking that too, Mud Butters. His tie, I was thinking maybe they're the colors of like the team he's going for in the World Cup or something.
You couldn't do it in just 1 year, and we're not going to get it done in this year. But we are sending a demand signal with this authorization that we are serious about reinvigorating the defense industrial base so that the market will rise to the occasion.
A lot's been being said about how much we are spending on defense this year, 1.1.
Man, I can't wait till the midterms come and we take back the House and the Senate and we replace this old hag right here.
$1 trillion in this. I don't know a single thing to help the defense of this country that came out of the $6 trillion spent during the Biden administration. Nothing to help the defense of this nation. There are expressions for what happened to that $6 trillion. Suffice it to say, most of it was wasted, and wasted very unceremoniously. Thank you very much, Mr.
If I might, Madam Chair,
Norman.
just so people know, you're talking about the $6 trillion that was spent during COVID. There were a variety for it wasn't all.
I like this guy right here. This guy's awesome. He's smart.
I guess, yes, Mr. Smith, I think people understand that.
Well, some of that was spent at the end of the Trump administration with the CARES Act.
Well,
So it was both that were involved.
It was $6 trillion under the Biden administration. Mr. Norman, you're recognized.
Thank both of you for testifying today. Where the $30 billion that was cut, waste, fraud, and abuse, where did that come from? And what was the increase from last year to the 1.1 trillion? Am I right on that bottom number? Or was I wrong eventually?
It gets a little confusing.
Yeah, I was going to say the baseline discretionary spending was not increased last year. It was flatlined. We put 150 billion reconciliation one-time money on top of the baseline of 886, which we took from 2024 into 2025. So baseline spending has been level for 2 years. If we raise it with this bill, it'll be the first time in 3 years it's been increased. We had one-time reconciliation money that was passed last year to try to jumpstart the defense industrial base. And that's part of what we did when I talked about the 7-year guaranteed contracts. We're using part of that money for that, but also replenishing munition stockpiles that we have depleted from recent endeavors.
With Iran.
No, that was really more Ukraine. That's perspective, what you're talking about with Iran.
Okay, and the reduction on the 6 main suppliers,
That just has occurred over decades of reduced defense spending. The market responds to what we're spending, and we were spending at a much higher clip in the 80s and the early 90s. But as we began to decrease defense spending, the market responded and it shrank.
Well, there's also a lot of consolidation.
And there was
The 6 remaining gobbled up a lot of the 50s. Some of them went under, some of them gobbled up. Just to understand the numbers. So last year, I thought it was 896, but 886, whatever the base budget
that's
was.
including
Energy, right? I was about that. And then we added 156 billion in reconciliation. So last year's total defense spending would have been right around $1 trillion. Yeah, a little over $1 trillion is that. And now this is 1.15 trillion. So even that's like a little over a 10% increase from last year. And then we don't know what's going to happen with reconciliation.
Hey, what's happening, Robert? How's it going?
Ignore the supplemental.
What's up, Nancy? For sure, release the Epstein files. Absolutely.
I agree with Chairman Fox. You know, we don't have a strong military. We don't have a strong country.
Captain Homer says 20 trillion to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. LOL. That's funny. Yeah, that's pretty much what happened with the supreme leader. Trump did all those bombs, and then they just replaced him with another supreme leader. His son, actually.
If we have a strong country that cannot afford continues to add our debt, that we're pretty well sunk anyway. But I'm glad on the timing of resupplying the things that we need, and we're on track for that.
we can get this fixed.
Oh, this is a hearing that happened today regarding it's the House Rules Committee. So it's regarding the budget for the NDAA, the National Defense Association Act or something like that. Or I guess technically it's like the Department of War now. Pete Hegseth calls it. Pete Kegsbreth illegally calls it the Department of War.
We've got the thing that I'm trying to convey to everybody is we don't have the physical capability of building munitions and systems fast enough to meet our challenges. And if we don't correct this is dangerous territory we're in.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. No further questions. I yield that.
Thank you.
Hey, what up? What up, J-Fo? What's cracking?
I want to follow up with one quick question.
Oh yeah, we got a good crew of non-Kool-Aid drinkers. Hey, shout out to all the non-Kool-Aid drinkers in the house. But yeah, we got open chat. So if there's any MAGA cult members and lurking, don't be shy. We'll give you the facts. Just the facts, ma'am.
World War II. How many ships were we building? One every 4 days? Did I read that the other day?
It was
Do you remember that?
like that. I mean, they weren't the kind of ships we build now, but yeah, we were building them at an enormous clip. But that's a wonderful example of what we demonstrated a nation we can do when we have to.
Yeah, but we did have an industrial base at that time.
We swelled up and created one. Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Yeah, as soon as they say TDS or Biden, boom, automatically an orange ball liquor.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for testifying and for your team and yourself working with me throughout this process. It's been very helpful, so I'm gracious for that and grateful for that. So my question is, when we look back to last year, 94 Democrats voted against final passage of the NDAA, if I'm not mistaken. Could you frame for this committee what a vote against this week's version of the NDAA is? What does that constitute?
Obviously, I think it's malfeasance when we know that we're in a recklessly dangerous circumstance as far as our ability to defend ourselves and to build munitions and weapon systems that will deter aggression. I think it's irresponsible. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here promoting.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I think you've answered many of the questions of this committee throughout the hearing, so I will yield back.
Mr. Jack, would you
Absolutely.
yield a moment? I believe the chairman pointed out earlier, it's a slap in the face of our military people because there's a big raise in here for them. So if you vote no, you're voting against those who are serving in the military.
I'm sorry, I gotta speak up here. That's utter nonsense, okay? And there have been situations
Mr.
where,
Smith,
I'm sorry.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you could just accuse members of being, Republicans have voted against the defense budget too. Are they slapping, the armed services members in the face? We have a responsibility to make a decision one way or the other. I've voted for the bill many times and voted against it. I don't think we should accuse any member who votes against the defense bill of slapping our troops in the face. I think that is just out of order.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
All right, looks like they're going to bring in a new panel. Let's see who the new panel is. What's up, everyone? Hope you're all having a good Monday. Just hanging out, watching this this House Rules Committee that happened earlier today. So this is pretty fresh here. But yeah, MAGA Mike Grinder Johnson was over there all crying that they're going to lose the midterms. And that's pretty much exactly what's going to happen. They're all going to get impeached, removed, and imprisoned for all their un-American activities. I'm going to forward a little bit to where people pull back up. Or here's Jim McGovern.
Van Dyne and Representative Moore from the House Ways and Means Committee.
Oh, wait. All right, here we go.
All right, I welcome our next panel, Representative Van Dyne and Representative Moore from the House Ways and Means Committee.
Who the hell is this bloke?
Give us just a minute. All right, we're going to go ahead and start in just a second, but your full statements will be submitted for the record, and we ask that you summarize your statement in 5 minutes. We do ask that your statement cover all legislation in your committee's jurisdiction. Representative Van Dyne, we're going to go ahead and start with you and welcome you for your testimony. You're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member McGovern, for this opportunity to testify on the Removing Barriers to Work for Disabled Americans Act that was introduced by Representative Scott, as well as my resolution celebrating the historic results of the Working Families Tax Cuts. The Removing Barriers to Work for Disabled Americans Act empowers Americans receiving disability insurance who want to work by addressing shortcomings in the Social Security Disability Insurance Program. Today, less than 1% of disability insurance beneficiaries leave that program each year because of a successful return to the workforce, despite the fact that 60% of beneficiaries say they would like to work. Whether it is a fear of receiving overpayments, hitting a benefit cliff, or being unable to navigate confusing rules and regulations, Americans with disabilities face barriers to work. During a Ways and Means subcommittee hearing, we heard about these bureaucratic roadblocks. We also heard from a disability advocate that if work had not been an option, he would have graduated to the couch. Instead, his work has given him real purpose and a different outlook on life. Under this bill, the Social Security Administration can deploy demonstration projects to test policies to improve outcomes for disability insurance beneficiaries. The SSA previously had such authority, but it expired in 2022. This bill reauthorizes it for 5 years, and it ensures that participation in pilot programs is completely voluntary. And let me repeat that. Participation in this program is completely voluntary. Also, any new return to work policy cannot cause a reduction in the income of any participating beneficiary. Representative Scott has long been a champion for Purple Heart veterans, many of whom are eager to return to work, but they can't afford the severe restrictions placed on their work status. I commend Mr. Scott for expanding his bill to allow demonstration authority for so many affected groups, including blind Americans. This legislation received bipartisan support in the Ways and Means Committee, in which we all agree that empowering Americans to experience the dignity of work is a worthy cause. Turning to the Working Families Tax Cuts. President Trump and Republicans in Congress delivered tax relief to working class Americans like waitresses, linemen, seniors, moms and dads, farmers, and small businesses, so they can keep more of their hard-earned money. When my Democrat colleagues talk about this bill, all we hear about is the benefit of billionaires. Like, I've never met a billionaire who's earned tips or worked overtime or worked for overtime. I've never met a billionaire who relied on Social Security or who needed a more than double child tax credit or that benefited from a simpler tax code that more than doubles their standard deduction. Pro-worker, pro-family tax cuts, like no tax on tips, no tax on over.
I believe so, Brett. Yeah, she's pretty deranged.
Tax on Social Security.
Pretty much their whole party is, they don't care about anybody.
Larger child tax credit, the enhanced standard deduction led to historic tax refunds that were up more than 11% on average, and the total amount refunded up more than 18%. In fact, 97%.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes with these MAGA meat riding politicians because they do so much mental gymnastics and word salad.
Americans cut. Meanwhile, the share of income tax that top 1% are paying rises from 37 to 40% under the working families tax cuts. We've made it easier to afford healthcare, childcare, education, and adoption. We invested in the financial future of Americans' children. Starting on the 4th of July, Treasury will deposit $1,000 into Trump accounts for children born during the Trump administration. The Ways and Means Committee has heard numerous stories of how Americans benefited. A Texas steelworker is using no tax on overtime to start a family. A waiter in Arizona used no tax on tips to start law school. A teacher from Texas said the refundable adoption tax credit will help his family adopt their second child. For rural America, Republicans made the double death tax exemption permanent, so 2 million family farms can pass their legacy to the next generation. As rural opportunity zones help $100 billion in investment to small towns. The permanent small business deduction helps 36 million small businesses grow and hire. Pro-growth, permanent tax policy is sparking a stronger economy. In the last 3 months, manufacturers added 22,000 jobs and private businesses created 499,000 net new jobs. Businesses in foreign countries are investing trillions in new facilities and reviving forgotten communities. Manufacturing grew at the fastest level in 4 years, and capital expenditures are up 17% overall. Democrats still refuse to acknowledge how the working families tax cuts helped Americans, including their constituents. They don't want to admit that they voted for a 22% tax hike on every single American. But that tracks the Democrats' record on affordability. When Democrats controlled Washington, working class folks got a 21% inflation spike from Democrats' $10 trillion spending spree.
Hey, how's it going, Aloha Kitty? Good to hear from you. Just watching this hearing that happened earlier today regarding the House Rules Committee.
Instead of helping working families, they rewarded wealthy environmentalists with green new scam tax breaks. Billionaires were the beneficiaries of Democrat corporate welfare. Under Republicans, relief goes to working class families. Thank you for your time and I look forward to your questions.
Gentlelady yields back and now recognize Representative Moore for her 5-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have comments after Mark regarding the 1-year anniversary of the working families tax, but also on the HR 884, the removing barriers to working today.
But we're here on the this Disabled Americans Act.
Well,
Oh, both.
I'm here
Or both.
5 minutes, okay.
I think her microphone's messed up. I'm going forward a little bit.
Disability benefits by $50 billion over 10 years. $50 billion, $50 billion over 10 years. Let me say it again. $50 billion over 10 years. The first Trump administration wanted to use the demonstration authority that we're being asked today to reauthorize to slash $50 billion of earned benefits. Just last year, the Trump administration wanted to enact one of the biggest cuts to disability benefits ever by changing the rules for
I like this lady. She's cool.
claims. This change could have resulted in hundreds of thousands of older, severely disabled people being denied benefits. And after we spoke up, they backed down from this disastrous plan. And now, our Republican colleagues want to grant the Trump administration the very demonstration authority to gut SSDI that President Trump has been begging for. And just to further exacerbate the Trump-created customer service crisis at SSA, this Republican bill would strip millions from SSA's operating funds to pay for it. The Trump administration has blatantly disregarded some of our most sacred privacy laws that protect Americans' sensitive Social Security data. So it's hard to imagine that this administration wouldn't try to skirt some of the other requirements for demonstration projects. For example, current law requires that SSA must obtain the voluntary written consent of anyone who participates in a demonstration, but it's entirely up to the administration to determine what it looks like. Is this a Trump administration really trying to spell out all the risks? I'm going to move on because my time is limited, and I'll talk about the 1 year anniversary to the One Big Beautiful Bill. Again, I want to thank you all for hearing me out. When I heard that we were going to do a resolution commemorating this, I wondered why my Republican colleagues were just gifting Democrats with another opportunity to talk about this deeply flawed and unpopular signature bill. American workers and families are reeling from a senseless cost of living crisis, higher cost of groceries, electricity, healthcare, every product. But as President Trump himself has declared, he doesn't care about the financial situation of Americans. And I suppose I'll join you in wishing a happy birthday tax cut for billionaires. You can't really hide from the numbers, Mr. Chairman. The average 2027 tax cut for taxpayers who made over $1 million per year will be $96,400, while the average 2027 tax cut for taxpayers who make under $50,000 per year will be $247 a year. That's 68 cents a day. That's right. Republicans gave millionaires a tax cut that is 390 times the size of what they gave to workers and families making less than $50,000. Crumbs from the master's table. And while we pat ourselves on the back for doling out these meager tax cuts to working families, like tax on tips for some workers temporarily, no tax on overtime for some people who are breaking their backs working extra hours and still struggling to make ends meet, again, temporarily. Even the temporary tax cuts for the elderly have contributed to further deteriorating Social Security finances, according to the latest trustees report. People are suffering, and unless you're wealthy, if you were well off before the OBBBA, you're certainly better off now. And under the guise of tackling the favorite triplets, the boogeymen, waste, fraud, and abuse, we have taken food out of the mouths of the hungry, including over 800,000 children. We've cut access to health care for millions across our nation. And instead of investing in people, we're pushing more people off. We made them healthier, more unhealthy, more hungry, and more desperate. And Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. And I wish the chairman of the committee were here so I could wish her a happy birthday.
And she may step back in a minute, but she had to take care of something.
That said, appreciate it. The gentlelady yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from South Carolina. Do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern.
Yeah, and I just want to say for the record that when I was chair of this committee, I never cut anybody off who testified. So I know things are different, but just so you know. The idea that we're going to have a resolution, to celebrate the big ugly bill is beyond me. And I don't know, Ms. Van Dyne, I mean, if you go to the grocery store, prices are up. Go to a gas station, prices are still too high. You go everywhere, the price of everything is too high. But I just want to read to you a couple of testimonies from people in this country who basically can't afford their health care anymore because of this administration and because of this Congress. Sharon Dunham from Grand Rapids, Michigan. a two-time cancer survivor. She went without insurance this year after her premium would have risen to about $980 a month from $614. Is paying out of pocket for tests and visits until she turns 65 and qualifies for Medicare. Quote, "It is definitely terrifying," she said. Arona East from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Arona and her partner and her 20-year-old son no longer have health insurance because it's too expensive. Through her work, a family plan would cost her $800 per pay period, and a state marketplace plan with a high deductible will cost about $650 a month, he said. Right now, I'm not able to pay for the marketplace insurance because it's just astronomical, she said. Adding to the cost has kept her from getting care for premenopause symptoms. Eric and Lisa Frankenfeld from Point Pleasant, New Jersey, a chiropractor and his wife, there's an office manager. Their premium was set to skyrocket to $1,928 a month, or $340. So they decided to go without coverage for 2026. Quote, "We are healthcare providers who cannot afford benefits. Oh, the irony," she said. I go on and on and on. I ask unanimous consent to insert this into the record, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, these are testimonies of people who can't afford their health care anymore because of policies of this. No, this is collected by Protect Our Care organization. It's current. Yeah, right, okay, all right. Yeah, what? Well, I mean, I'd be here all day reading it for you. Right, yeah. It's real life stories, we should care about. Look, we all support helping disabled Americans who want to return to work, but as we've seen time and time again, when you give the Trump administration an inch, they take a mile. Trump administration has provided zero information on how it would use this authority. In fact, when asked in markup if the administration has shared any details of his plans, Republican counsel stated he was, quote, "not aware," end quote. Ms. Van Dyne, if you want the Social Security Administration to do these demos, why don't you authorize any specific demos in statute? Why leave it open-ended?
Well, I think, I mean, you're talking about the potential to be able to cut disability benefits. The bill specifically stipulates that demonstration project may not reduce beneficiaries' total income. And this is a new beneficiary protection that was not included, by the way, in the previous authorization of the SSA's Disability Insurance Demonstration Authority.
Why not authorize specific demos in the statute?
You can, this is basically a reauthorization, but with stronger effects. But I do want, I mean, you hit on gas prices. So gas prices, just by the way, have fallen for the last 6 weeks. Average gas price right now under President Trump is 16 cents lower than it was under President Biden. So if you want lower gas prices, be thankful Trump is in office and we don't have a Democrat.
The last time we did
you talked about affordability, you talked about healthcare. I'm happy to answer the questions as opposed to.
Oh my goodness, this lady so wants to be part of the Mar-a-Lago mafia so bad.
Kind of just
last time we reauthorized something similar, we actually included demo projects. But in addition to the bill that we're considering today, my colleague, and I don't know, he may not want me to say this, but I actually, Representative Austin Scott actually has a bipartisan bill, H.Res 7120, that would make several specific SSDI program changes to help combat disabled Purple Heart veterans, to help combat disabled Purple Heart veterans who want to return to work. Would you support allowing the House of Representatives to also have an up or down vote on the floor for Rep. Austin Scott's bill to help Purple Heart veterans on SSDI who want to return to work?
I think what this is, you're seeing all this put into one bill. I think it's important because it also allows a lot more flexibility.
I didn't see that in the bill.
You know, what I'm saying is we're wrapping this up and we are working with Congressman Scott.
Right. So I'm just really saying.
This would allow an opportunity. This gives a lot more flexibility if they wanted to have that in there.
You know, for some of us, quite frankly, and I have my political differences with this White House, but I'm.
Yeah, what up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. We're watching this marathon of a hearing that happened today. I got like a half ounce of some hippie lettuce. I got a bunch of coffee. I got some fruit. I got some trail mix. So I'm in it for the long haul. So we're an hour and 22 minutes into this hearing that's 6 hours long. So there's still 5 hours left to go. But thanks for everyone that's hanging out. I was actually going to live stream, instead of this, I was going to live stream like Donald Trump's like bizarre Oval Office speech he had today, and then like some like related clips. But none of the stuff was too interesting. So I figured I'll just do this House Rules Committee instead. It seems a lot more interesting. But yeah, I'm glad I did this instead of the Donald Trump speech announcement that he did earlier, because I saw the lowlights of it, and like always, it's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo nonsense.
The flexibility part, I just want to be assured that this stuff is going to happen. So to say that they have the flexibility to do this is different than saying they have to do this. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and I think the bill includes the guardrails that prevent any of the beneficiaries from being worse off, which I think is one of your concerns in our demonstration. No beneficiary will see a decrease, as we mentioned before, in income because they participate in a project. And it also includes more congressional
And even though it's like 6 hours long, I think like every hour or so, they change the panel, so it'll be a bunch of different like hearings, but it's all like in this same setting. But it all happened today too.
which I think is what you're asking, than any other prior authorization. So it requires Social Security Administration notify Congress of their plans 120 days, which we didn't have before.
But no guarantee that Austin Scott's bill will be done, and I can't believe I'm agreeing with him on something he's done. But we actually agree.
Hey, what up, Donnie? Hey, good call, Donnie. That's a good call.
I know. I just feel a hell of a lot better if, in fact, it were in this legislation, or that we had an up or down vote on it, and that I could be assured that it will be happening, so that we don't have to wait another year and then come back and say, well, it didn't happen. Why not?
All of that is part of the congressional appropriations efforts, as you know.
Well, in any event, I would. It is not in this bill. I would feel a lot better if it was. Maybe we can address that.
It depends on where you go, but typically like 200, like anywhere between like $100, $200.
So I understand she would then.
But yeah, I'm in California and it's 10:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so I guess this will probably be over around 3 a.m.
You would vote for this if
No,
that was.
I would vote for Austin Scott's bill. And again, and again, people's healthcare prices are going through the roof, and I could read for hours and hours and hours about people.
And I would love to be able to go hours and hours and hours toe to toe on what the One Big Beautiful Bill did for people's affordability for prices, for allowing people to get more of a taxpayer dollars back.
Referred to it as the big ugly bill, because for the majority of people in this country, it didn't help. It hurt them. And again, losing your health care, there's nothing worse than not being able to afford your health care. And I gave you an example of a healthcare provider that couldn't afford their health care. So anyway, we have to get back to focusing on, regular people and their inability to afford.
Oh yeah, back in like the 90s, early 2000s, it was probably like $400 an ounce.
The cost of living. I don't know, Ms. Moore, do you want to add anything or?
It really is it's really interesting how people see the same thing in different ways. I think about 4 million people are we haven't even really phased it all.
She forgot to turn on her microphone again.
Yeah, 4 million people have lost their health care already. I think about the $187 billion loss.
Mr. Scott.
Not a problem. And
Yeah, she forgot to turn on her microphone.
I appreciate Mr. McGovern mentioning my legislation, and I want you to know that I do think it is the intent of the administration to carry out the intent of the Purple Heart Freedom to Work Act if we're able to pass this. And so I will just tell you the way this came about, and I've worked on this for almost a decade. I was taking a young man hunting, a young Marine. He stepped on a pressure plate, lost both legs, and I won't call him by name, but if we do get to sign the bill, I hope the president will allow him to be there for the signing. I'm on 475 in Georgia. I'm taking him hunting at a friend's place, and he says I work at O'Reilly's Auto Parts, but if I make more than, and at the time it was about $1,100 a month.
Well, maybe you shouldn't go hunting innocent animals.
Lose my Social Security benefits, so I have to be very careful not to work more than X numbers of hours a week, or my family is backing up and literally has less money because he worked more. And I actually couldn't believe it. I said, that doesn't sound right, but I'm going to go to DC. I'm going to meet with the lawyers. And I came up here and I met with Social Security lawyers, and they told me that I was absolutely right, or that he was absolutely correct. So I wrote the legislation. It was very narrowly tailored. Purple Heart, which means it's combat wounded. Total and permanent, which means it is obviously a total and a permanent disability. I intentionally narrowly tailored it because I wanted to make sure that it could work. And if it can work, then hopefully it could be expanded to other people that want to go back to work as well. But I'm a firm believer that the number one thing that you can do for somebody, especially if they have been one of our people that's been at the tip of the spear and has a combat injury, is to get them back to work. And their paycheck should not be penalized if they work an extra hour or two. So we wrote the bill, Purple Heart Freedom to Work. It's had broad bipartisan support.
Damn, hopefully that maggot can find himself a big, beautiful shower.
Have not been able to move it, whether the Democrats or the Republicans have been in charge of Congress. Working with Chairman Smith, this was the suggestion that he had for the fastest way to make this happen. And as you know, if we write the perfect piece of legislation in the House of Representatives and it goes to the Senate, they're going to turn around and take their sweet time with it, and then maybe it doesn't get done. But Purple Heart Day is August 7th, I believe. I think there is broad agreement that if somebody is combat wounded, total and permanent, that they should be allowed to go back to work, and they shouldn't have less money at the end of the month for going back to work.
I very rarely say this, but I agree with you.
Hang on. Does the gentleman yield?
I will yield.
Gentleman yields to the gentleman from
I
Massachusetts.
very rarely say this, but I agree with you. And that's why, I can't, it troubles me, because it would have been easy just to include your legislation in this, but I get it. But I hope you're right.
And with respect, Mr. Governor,
Yeah, they vote for him because Donald Trump's like Jim Jones 2.0. He's pretty much like a cult leader. So he just sells them on like hate and just like, all this like, God stuff. Donald Trump's always talking about like God, and Donald Trump like is like the furthest thing. He's like the furthest thing from God.
if had that legislation, whether the Democrats have controlled or the Republicans have controlled and not been able to get it, this legislation here, if you look at this authority has existed since 1980. It was reauthorized in 89. It was reauthorized again in 99. It was reauthorized again in 2015, is my understanding, and it has now expired. And so I have every belief in the world that if we're able to pass this, that the president will do something similar to, trust me, I don't speak for President Trump, but I have talked to the administration, and I do believe that they will do something very similar to the Purple Heart Freedom to Work Act if we're able to get this through.
And if they don't, I'll be happy to work with you, John, to see get over the finish line.
Thank you very much for that. And with that, that is the intent of that is the origin of the legislation, and this is the fastest way to get this done for our veterans. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields back now. Recognize the lady of Pennsylvania, Ms. Scanlon, for her time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to speak first to the Removing Barriers to Work for Disabled Americans Act. Congress has repeatedly given the Social Security Administration limited authority to test new approaches that help beneficiaries transition back to work. And some of those demonstrations have improved health outcomes, increased employment, and raised earnings for participants. But as Ranking Member suggested, times have changed, and those demonstration projects have always come with careful oversight. This bill is a sharp departure from that. This legislation would give the Trump administration open-ended authority to shape programs impacting Americans with disabilities, even though this administration has repeatedly proposed slashing disability programs and benefits, including special education programs for children with disabilities. Just this month, the Department of Justice issued a legal opinion which completely undermines the right to live in community for people with disabilities. It's an open attempt to overturn decades of disability rights laws, including the Olmstead decision from the Supreme Court. I don't think this is a point in time when we can give unlimited discretion to shape disability policy to an administration that's openly advocating for a return to institutionalization for our disabled family members and neighbors. Now, the second bill is just as hard to justify. This is the second time this year that Republicans have wasted time and tax dollars to pass a bill that does nothing more than congratulate themselves for passing their reconciliation bill last July. This is a bill that was so deeply unpopular with the American public that they had to change the name of their one big beautiful bill. But changing the name of that travesty of a bill doesn't change what it did or make it any more popular. It cut $1 trillion from Medicaid and Medicare, and that has already led 4 million Americans to lose their health coverage. It enacted the largest SNAP cut in our nation's history, causing 770,000 children to lose SNAP benefits, and it rescinded community investments in renewable energy. And it delivered enormous tax breaks to corporations and billionaires, adding over $4 trillion with a T to our national debt. So when I talk to my constituents, they don't say, gosh, I wish you could go to Congress and say, attaboy, guys, thanks for passing that one big ugly bill. They're asking us to lower costs, strengthen Social Security, and make government work better for the people, not for the billionaires. And unfortunately, neither of the bills before us here do that. Ranking Member Moore, during your committee markup, Democrats offered amendments to require public notice and comment, preserve existing beneficiary protections, and give Congress greater oversight on these Social Security demonstration projects. Republicans rejected this amendment unanimously. Why are these kind of guardrails important?
To work, but we do know that they're very vulnerable, and we don't want them. We need guardrails so that there'll be ways for them to back out of unsustainable events. We have typically, as a caucus, the Democrats have always appreciated efforts to get people back into the workforce. Why not? But we have seen from the past behavior of this administration that they have tried to cut $50 billion over 10 years out of programs for disabled people. And one of our senior members, Dr. Danny Davis, quoted Maya Angelou, who said that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And so we have seen this administration time and again trying to cut disability benefits, and so we are unwilling and unready to do that at this moment.
It is a matter of context. I worked primarily with children with disabilities in the special ed context, but I'm hearing a lot from our community with really grave concern about the cuts that are happening to those programs, particularly the removal of guardrails, things like the OSERS and Office of Civil Rights programs, which have been gutted, so there aren't the guardrails that we would have had in the past, and I think that's raising even more concern.
It is, and that they're taking this out of the jurisdiction of the Office of Civil Rights. Educational departments there are disaggregating these protections, and it's a very frightening thing for disability rights across the board for children and adults.
Thank you. And for veterans, I know there's been
And
criticism among veterans that the veterans with disabilities have not been treated with the same respect that they deserve. So thank you for your work on the bill. I yield back.
Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back. Now recognize myself for such time as I may consume, and would ask Ms. Van Dyne. Are there comments that you want to make in response to the things that have been said or that you've heard?
I appreciate that opportunity. When we talk about some of the impacts that the Working Families Tax Cut bill has had, I've listened to the criticisms. We've listened about affordability. We've listened about not being able to pay for healthcare. The fact is that 96% of filers receiving a tax credit earn less than $200,000 annually. That's an average savings of $815 to $1,250. These are not billionaires. These are people who are making less than $200,000. That supported the creation of the economic impact of the Working Families Tax Cut supported the creation of 6.1 million new full-time jobs versus higher capital investment and business expansion. It delivered up to $7,600 in higher wages per worker through increased productivity and capital stock. It provided up to $10,900 more in annual take-home pay for a median family with 2 children and an overtime worker. It prevented a scheduled 22% tax hike, which my Democrat friends supported, a 22% tax hike on average taxpayers. And the bill delivered an additional
Oh yeah, this lady's horrible right here.
$1,300 tax cut per family versus current law. It made a small business deduction.
Hey, what up? What up, Bortz?
Creating over 1 million new Main Street jobs annually. And it generated $750 billion in economic growth for small businesses, not for massive corporations, not for businesses, not for billionaires, but for small business owners. It allowed over 7.5 million filers to claim no tax on tip with an average deduction of $7,700.
I don't believe anything this lady's saying.
These are for working families. It allowed over 29 million filers to claim no tax on overtime with an average deduction of over $3,100. Again, these are not for billionaires. These are for working families in America. It also boosted the child tax credit to $2,200. So if we really want to talk about how we are helping, the working families in this country be able to pay for health care, first of all, if you want to talk about what a disaster Obamacare was, let's look at how much it's increased the premiums. 80%. Why? Because it was a horrible deal to
like everything she just said. Hopefully, one of these real politicians fact checks her on all these lies she's saying.
So giving us options that we don't have to pick Obamacare would be one.
Are you saying, Representative Van Dyne, that the Affordable Care Act was not affordable?
I'm saying that's exactly right. We hear these words, and if we are really wanting to allow Americans to be able to have more of their money, to be able to take more of a home, let's tax them less. And let's allow businesses to thrive. Let's protect the small businesses and protect the working families.
Now, I know where the numbers come from, but I think folks back home who might be watching this sometime later in the middle of the night, not necessarily right now, but on the replays on C-SPAN, they didn't understand this 22% tax hike, because that was a very real possibility, was it not? And isn't it accurate that 22% tax hike would come in because the tax deductions or the tax benefits that were in the first Trump administration were set to expire? A lot of things that people had gotten used to having. Is that not correct?
Absolutely. All those things would have expired January 1st of this year had we now passed this bill.
Can you tell them what some of those were?
So, for example, the deductions for small businesses, the R&D, all of those things that small businesses depended on to be able to reinvest.
And
was about to
do. Am I not correct that also included the accelerated depreciation, so that if you went out and you bought a new photocopier for your small law practice on Main Street in Salem, Virginia, you used to have to take that out over a period of years. You didn't get the deduction in the first year. It was a number of years. And under the first Trump administration in a Republican House, they reduced that. You can take it all in the first year. Is that not correct?
It's absolutely correct.
And that helps lots of small businesses stay in business. They have one good year. They can then buy new equipment. Isn't that correct?
Not only were we able to make these tax cuts so that we didn't have them expire at the end of the next year, but they were also made permanent. So because the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was expected to only last, a certain number of years, it's estimated that about $800 billion of potential investment wasn't actually made because of that expiration. With the permanency, expect all of that plus more, plus the foreign investment in our country that we're seeing.
And if we didn't pass the reconciliation bill, then that would have meant a tax increase for all those Main Street businesses, whether it be Salem, Virginia, or Texas, or Georgia, or South Carolina, or Massachusetts.
In addition to being on the Ways and Means Committee, I'm also on small business. And we had small business after small business come and testify that if those tax relief were allowed to expire, they would have to shut down their business.
Would have hurt a lot of Main Street businesses across the country. Anything else you want to add?
Great.
All right, well, I appreciate it, and I now yield back and recognize the gentlelady, Ms. Ledger Fernandez from New Mexico.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. I love this lady right here. She's awesome. I forget her name though.
Representative Van Dyne, you lauded the fact that the one big beautiful bill, and you referred to it that. I mean, I think it is hilarious that you have to change the name of your bill because it's so unpopular, but let's not spend too much time on that.
We changed the Affordable Care Act to Unaffordable Care Act at the time.
Yeah, they had the big bogus bill. They had to change the name on it. LOL. She just called them out.
I understand.
Yeah, you changed the name of the bill because it's so unpopular. It was 2-1. 2-1. People opposed this bill, right? When you were enacting it, and now they still don't like it. You said there was this great thing that you had a $2,500 child tax credit. What was the Democrats when Democrats were in control? What was the child tax credit back then? You don't know?
What's
it
up,
was $3,600 a month.
What up, Edward?
Refundable, paid out. So what the Republicans did was enact a child tax credit, which was worse than the Democrats. Now, do you know what Amazon's, Ms. Van Dyne, do you know what Amazon's, how their taxes went up or down after your one big beautiful bill?
We're looking at small businesses. I'm sorry, you're asking me about Amazon's tax. I don't work for Amazon, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, you were just saying.
And I'm not a tax attorney for Amazon, so I don't have their books in front of me.
Well, it's been acknowledged that this big beautiful bill benefited the wealthiest corporations.
We can also prove that it benefited small businesses across the country.
Amazon's tax bill went down by $9 billion. By $9 billion. So the wealthiest corporations in America, their tax bill went down because of your one big beautiful bill. Now, I want to go back
and yet they're paying more in taxes now than they ever have before.
Oh my goodness. That lady right there, her voice is so annoying. She like talks right up into the microphone. It's like I gotta keep like DJing the volume button over here.
Question. I'm gonna go back to the question of whether, the middle income, the working families, the tax cuts could have been extended. Now, Representative Moore, were there amendments proposed in Ways and Means that would have extended those tax cuts, but not given all of this giveaway to the biggest corporations? Now, were there those amendments made in Ways and Means?
Absolutely. There were amendments to try to extend the Affordable Care Act. There were amendments to try to make the child tax credit refundable, to try to extend some of the expiring tax cuts that would benefit lower income people. We've heard Representative Van Dyne wax on about the efforts and help that we gave small.
That's funny, Thorne. She probably is like 30 years old. Like JD Vance looks like he's aged like 10 years in the last year.
Through the 199A. But as you've pointed out, that benefit was not to people who were by.
Oh yeah, Morts. That was an epic hearing with Pam Bondi where she's all, what about the Dow? The Dow though is at 50,000. That Pam Bondi hearing. That was wild.
A printer for their office, but they were getting millions of dollars in tax benefits through this giant loophole. We had amendment after amendment that would have focused on providing tax breaks for lower income families. I think Ms. Van Dyne is sort of conflating the tax benefits that went to lower income people, as I've indicated before. You make $50,000 a year, your tax break was $247 a month.
Right, and Americans have had to spend $3,100 more on everyday items.
On healthcare, we have people now in the Medicaid program. I know of one constituent who makes 125, Social Security benefit is $125 a month over the poverty level. So they're gonna have to pay $1,500 a year to qualify for Medicaid. And so this is where we have placed people. They are the $1.2 trillion cut in Medicaid, the 187 the billions of dollars in cuts in SNAP. All of these things have not been compensatory for the $247 tax break that they may have had with the one big beautiful.
What's amazing is that usually, you show up in your community, you have town halls. I take it, Representative Moore, you have in-person town halls?
Absolutely.
Right, and Representative Van Dorn, do you have in-person town halls?
What we found is we actually have thousands of people who come to our town halls online.
But you.
So people who have children, people who have aged parents, people who don't want to actually have to get out, we reach them
Yeah,
more.
I have marvelous in-person as well as online town halls. Do you have in-person town halls?
We have online town halls,
Yeah.
and we have found that that is much more responsive to the needs of our constituents. I can't speak to the needs of your constituents.
But what happens when you have in-person?
Yeah, they probably get a bunch of MAGA bots in their online town halls.
Halls and anybody can come and anybody can ask questions, is you hear from people. It's unfiltered. You don't.
We have people who ask questions at our town halls all the time that everyone can hear.
What is interesting is that Republicans don't seem to want to have in-person town halls, and I think they don't.
Oh yeah, they don't like to have town halls anymore because they're always getting booed by all their constituents. Nobody the MAGA movement's dead. They're just getting booed everywhere.
In-person town halls, because when they do, people show up and express their opinion about their bills and their policies and these tax cuts and whether the economy is doing well. And it is not for working families, for farmers. We have an increase in bankruptcies, a 45% increase in bankruptcies. 45% increase in bankruptcies. I think that's the correct number, right?
All right, good night, Brett.
People are suffering. And it takes showing up and listening to people to know where they're feeling. But instead of doing that, what we had.
Yeah, this lady right here, she's awesome, but she needs to speak into her mic. Or they need to get a longer mic for her.
Is we have resolutions. The second resolution that Republicans are bringing to pat themselves on the back. Representative Moore, is there anything else you want to add to this? Oh, we didn't really get to talk about the disabilities, but one of the issues that concerns me is that we have a president who's made fun. He's mocked people with disabilities. He has issued opinions to strip people of disabilities of their civil rights. He has taken action that is negative to families with disabilities, from Medicaid funding to his mocking, to his stripping of their rights. And that's why something like this reauthorization is so concerning. But I wanted to just give you the last word, Representative.
Yeah, I thank you so much for that, Representative. And one of the things I'm concerned about is not just that people might lose their disability benefits, but they lose access to health care as well. In an administration where the thrust seems to be to cut people's health care benefits as well as cutting the amount of money that they receive, I think it is very risky to give the administration the authority to do both of those things. It gives them a two-edged sword to be able to do that. And so Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee have been very empathetic with the idea of creating more employment opportunities for everybody, but we don't want to do it at the expense of people being able to have a decent standard.
Thank you very much. And I did ask whether it was a 45% increase in farm bankruptcy. It's a 46%, so a little higher. But basically, this one big beautiful bill did not make the kind of difference for rural America. It's hurting it. We have rural health centers, rural hospitals closing because of this big beautiful bill.
And suicide rates. I'm from Wisconsin, and we have seen a really uptick in suicide rates among.
Yeah, their microphones aren't in sync. Whenever she talks, I gotta put the volume at like 64. When the other lady talks, I gotta put the volume at like 90.
Very, very concerning about the rural America. Even though I represent Milwaukee, Wisconsin is a rural state, and so I'm very mindful of what happens.
Thank you very much, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Ledger Fernandez. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Thank you very much. We are classmates.
Class of 1909.
I think I'm the last person here, so I'm going to ask some questions. Representative Van Dyne, our Democrat friends claim that H.R. 8884, Removing Barriers to Work for Disabled Americans Act, will hurt beneficiaries and that President Trump wants to reduce or eliminate disability insurance benefits. Does this bill actually prevent income from being reduced or eliminated for those beneficiaries who choose to participate in a demonstration program?
It absolutely does. The bill explicitly states that the Social Security Administration may not conduct a demonstration project that would reduce a participant's total income. This is a new beneficiary protection that was not included in any previous authorization of the SSA's Disability Insurance Demonstration Authority. And further participation in a demonstration is completely voluntary, requiring the commission to obtain an individual's informed written consent, which a participant may then revoke at any time.
Thank you very much. One more question. Well, maybe a question with several parts. So, Representative Van Dyne, on H.Res. 1383, your bill on commemorating the 1-year anniversary of the enactment of the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, our Democrat friends like to characterize these tax cuts as, quote, giving tax relief to the richest Americans at the expense of hardworking Americans, end quote. Is it true that families of four making under $73,000 will generally face zero federal income tax liability due to the Working Families Tax Cut?
Yes. A family of four making $73,000 owes Uncle Sam $0 in federal income tax. And that's thanks to a bigger standard deduction in a child tax credit increase to $2,200 per child. And without the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, the same family would have seen their taxes go up, would have seen their standard deduction cut, and their child tax credit halved. Republicans made sure that didn't happen, that families keep making more of their hard-earned dollars.
Thank you very much. To me, that is a huge statement for the American people to understand. And this would affect a lot of people in my district, because I think the average income in my district is about $63,000. So a lot of people are going to pay no taxes on this. And North Carolina's done a wonderful job of offering real benefits to people in North Carolina too. So there'll be a lot of working families who won't have to pay federal or state taxes in North Carolina. So another question, or another part, have Americans whose income is in the bottom 40% of all taxpayers seen a 15% reduction in their taxes?
Yeah. The bottom 40% got a 15% tax cut, which is the biggest cut by percentage of any income group. That's thanks to no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, a larger standard deduction, and a bigger child tax credit. Republicans targeted relief at the Americans whose paychecks had been stretched thin by Democrat inflation. And the data confirms that. Republicans actually delivered.
And is the largest percentage reduction going to the bottom 20% of working people?
The bottom 20%, absolutely. That is exactly who this bill was meant to help. This is exactly where those dollars have been going, and they're getting the biggest benefit.
We keep hearing that it's the wealthiest people who are benefiting from this, but this is my understanding. Tell me if you agree. Has the share of total income taxes paid by Americans whose income is in the top 1% increased to over 40% as a result of the working families tax cuts, meaning the wealthiest people are paying more and the share paid by Americans in the remaining 99% decreased to 60%.
Yes, absolutely. It's an inconvenient fact that I think a lot of Democrats, they don't want to talk about, but the very rich are paying more. And that was my point I made a moment ago. But they are paying more of the tab after the working families tax cuts than they were before. There aren't a whole lot of billionaires who are taking advantage of no tax on tips or taking advantage of no tax on overtime. Republicans wrote this bill for the people that did.
Thank you very much. I appreciate both of y'all being here. Mr. McGovern.
That's it, the Democrats don't want to talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it. You want me to engage?
That's okay, Mr. McGovern. I believe I asked you, you said you'd done your questioning, so thank you very much.
Oh man, I forgot to turn on the microphone again.
The tax code, they're benefiting from the tax code.
They're not paying taxes, but they're also not benefiting from the refundable tax credit that they had been.
Well,
50% of children out of poverty.
What you're talking about is they're not getting welfare in addition to they're not paying taxes. So if they're going to get more money than they're paying in taxes, then that's welfare.
Well, it's not well and it's not fair.
They're getting money from other people who are working.
Well, I just wanted to be clear that when we start talking about how well off the lower 20% are, that you are making a distinction because those people are really poor. They don't pay taxes and they also do not get many of the benefits
Ms. Moore,
yes.
you're talking to probably the person who grew up the poorest of any person in this Congress. You need to know that. You need to know that there's probably no other person in this Congress who grew up as poor as I did. And so don't talk to me about poverty because I know it better than anybody.
Well, ma'am,
Yeah, I guess so. She was probably going through the Great Depression.
talk to you about poverty. I just wanted to set the record straight that while we're talking about how well families are off, that there are children who are hungry, that don't
What
have
I'm
health
saying
care.
is they're better off
As a
than
result.
before this bill passed.
No, they're
Thank
not.
Thank you all very much.
Let's talk about
We
the both things,
appreciate your coming.
corporations.
You're dismissed. Thank you.
And
We obviously have a lot of interest today.
Granny got triggered.
As soon as our witnesses for this panel are away, we would invite Mr. Knott, Mr. Sessions, Mr. Herodopoulos, Ms. Houlihan, Mr. Moylan, and Pete Stauber's in the house, Mr. Stauber. That's a little inside joke between Mr. Stauber and me. We're taking people in the order in which they came in. So Okay, not Sessions, if you guys can take a seat. Not Sessions, Herodopoulos, Houlihan, Moylan, and Stauber.
All right, here's the third panel. Here's a new panel's about to start. This is the third one. So let's see what this is all about.
Yeah, maybe move down a little bit to let people squeeze in there. Either place. Yeah. Yes, sir. We normally have 8 seats, but today we've got 7. I guess somebody figured out we could do the panels. Okay, I'm going to call on you in the order in which I called your name. Not Sessions, Herodopoulos, Houlihan, Moylan, and Stauber. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
My colleague from North Carolina, Mr. Knott.
Before we get started, I'd be remiss if I did not wish you a very happy birthday on the
Thank you very
record.
much.
I hope it's been a good day for you, and we're thrilled to be here.
It'll be better.
Mr. Ranking Member, good to see you. And today it's my privilege to speak about 2 of my amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act for this year. Immigration security, as you all know, is pivotal for national security. Without secure borders, we do not have any hope or possibility for a secure nation. Both of the amendments I'm offering have previously passed the House with strong bipartisan support. The first amendment deals with the national security threat that is unique to the criminal group Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua started out as a prison gang from the Venezuela.
Wait, didn't Trump and Keg's Breath bomb the leader of Tren de Aragua recently?
State of Aragua that has since grown into a sprawling criminal empire that has grown pretty much without any exception throughout the Western Hemisphere, including the United States and Canada. TDA's criminal activities include, but are not limited to, kidnapping, human trafficking, smuggling, sale of dangerous drugs, money laundering, organized retail crime, murder, and violent extortion of small business owners. TDA is not in any way an average criminal organization. This is a sophisticated and international enterprise that terrorizes Americans. We've seen numerous examples of this all over our country. Accordingly, the president correctly issued Executive Order 14157 to designate TDA as a foreign terrorist organization. My amendment builds on the president's actions by requiring the Department of Homeland Security and the intelligence community to collaborate on a detailed border threat assessment regarding threats posed by TDA members. DHS would also be required to develop a strategy for countering TDA within a year. The second amendment I have today deals with another pressing issue, and one that I am very well familiar with based off of my experience prior to Congress. The purpose of the amendment is quite simple. It's to prevent and to disincentivize the illegal re-entrants from coming back into the country, and is to prevent and disincentivize illegal immigrants who are already here from committing crimes. To achieve these goals, it would first, again, to deter illegal re-entry from any illegal alien who has been deported. And stated differently, it would encourage anyone who has been deported to come back to this country legally, if at all. The second goal is to deter criminal activity from any illegal immigrant who is in this country. Whether it is fraud, terrorism, driving while intoxicated, of all sorts, all are greatly disincentivized by this amendment because it streamlines and makes more efficient their charging and convictions. I want to reiterate that immigration security is national security. I believe that my 2 amendments will build on the good work that has already been done in this administration to secure the borders and to combat dangerous criminal organizations. Again, I want to thank the chairwoman and the ranking member today for having us, and I urge inclusion of these 2 amendments in the rule. I yield back.
Thank you very much. I forgot to mention earlier that we would ask you to summarize your statement in 5 minutes or less, and the whole statement would be entered into the record, and you did great. Mr. Sessions, the former chairman of the committee, is Legacy, you're recognized.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. McGovern, good to see you in the committee. It's good to be with you. As a matter of fact, I did spend Virginia 20 years up here and enjoyed every single minute. So it's a great opportunity to be back before you. Today, I lay before the committee what I think is a very important bill. It is actually NDAA Amendment number 1102. This amendment is very important. It's what's called the Independent Investment Fund Act. And I come to you today representing a bipartisan caucus that is called the Biotech Caucus, represented by also Christy Houlihan and Stephanie Bice. The interest of this bipartisan caucus is to have America be better positioned in biotech against the leaders around the world that oppose the United States, not only in marketplaces, but in the reliability of their products and what they do. We could specifically say China, and so I could say China and mean that because I do. But what's happened is several years ago, the United States Senate formed what is called the National Security Commission on Emerging Technology. And this was the Congress's attempt to begin looking at how important biotech companies are, medicine, the development of IPOs, the development of AI drugs, the development of a whole lot of things that would keep the United States of America and our friends and allies in the lead against others who perhaps would use this biotech area against the best interest of not only consumers, but perhaps the United States and our friends. I bring this to you today. We dropped the bill a full year ago, but feel like that today that this independent fund that could be easily added into NDAA would fit very reasonably because the United States of America finds itself on the backside of being able to adapt itself and adjust, including the government, as they learn things about biotech, as they learn things about maybe things that they see in the marketplace. We've been aware of this. The CIA has been through this for a long time, that they needed to know more about the things that they encounter. So this is very simply put an opportunity for DOD, which is in this Department of War bill, to be able to deal with the Treasury Department and other agencies, have a fund that would be available to immediately begin the investigation and the bringing together of ideas to support national security issues as they develop. And this is done through this commission, and it would be done with a cross-government, and I believe that it would be the right thing to do. And so I come to the Rules Committee today to ask for your gracious consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Sessions. Mr. Herodopoulos.
Madam Chair, ranking member and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify and ask for the committee's support on my bipartisan amendment to the NDAA. The amendment authorizes NASA to conduct a pilot program to 2031, allowing the agency to accept private contributions for infrastructure improvements at NASA's 10 centers. This is a common sense proposal, in my opinion, that gives NASA an additional tool to address critical infrastructure needs without costing the taxpayers additional dollars. Rather than appropriating new federal dollars, this authority simply allows private companies to invest their own resources in projects that directly support NASA operations. While this authority would apply across all the 10 centers, it is especially clear in Florida's Kennedy Space Center. As launch activity continues to accelerate, many of the nation's national security missions rely on Kennedy's infrastructure. Heavy launch vehicles routinely damage the roadways used to transport rockets and critical equipment throughout the center, thus delaying the flights and increasing costs. The companies using these facilities have requested this authority because they're willing to pay for the infrastructure improvements. They understand that repairing damaged roadways quickly means getting the national security mission on track. This bipartisan amendment, Congressman Whitesides and I are working on this together, has the support of NASA leadership, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman, and provides the fiscal responsibility necessary to meet this growing challenge. I have also been working with Senator Moody on this amendment, and it has the support of the Commercial Industry, the Senate Commerce Committee, and the House Science Committee as well. It will strengthen the infrastructure that supports American civil and national security and space missions while preserving taxpayer needs. As our global competitors continue investing heavily in space capabilities, America cannot afford unnecessary delays, especially as we look to win the race to the moon. This amendment helps ensure NASA facilities remain ready to support the defense of our nation and America's continued leadership in space. I respectfully request the committee to make this amendment in order, and thank you very much for your consideration. And I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Herodopoulos. Ms. Houlihan, you're recognized.
Chair and Ranking Member and members of the committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to ask today that several of my amendments be made in order and allowed a vote because they all advance one simple goal, which is keeping America's military ready to fight and win and come back home. Our military is strongest when decisions are driven by evidence, by our professionalism, and by mission and not by politics or ideology. Every amendment that I'm offering today is about protecting our readiness, strengthening accountability, and ensuring that the Department of Defense remains focused on the threats we actually face. First, Amendment number 69 protects a simple principle that military service should be based on whether you can meet a standard, not whether you are a man or a woman. For years, we have built a force where standards determine qualification and mission determines the assignment, and that has only made us stronger. And we should not throw that away. Secretary Hegseth's effort to impose the so-called highest male standard is not grounded in military necessity. It is driven instead by ideology. And every time that we tell a qualified American who can meet the standard that they cannot serve, we make our military smaller, weaker, and less ready. Second, my amendment number 105 reaffirms religious neutrality at the Department of Defense. Religious freedom is one of our nation's most fundamental values. Protecting it requires government neutrality. Every service member has the right to practice their faith or not practice a faith without pressure from their chain of command. That's not anti-religion. It is indeed the Constitution. This amendment protects every service member's freedom of conscience and strengthens this trust and cohesion that our military depends on. Third, Amendment 200 would fence or stop the implementation of this bill until such time as there is new leadership at the Department of Defense. This is not about politics. It is about doing our jobs and protecting the institution we are entrusted to oversee. Congress has a constitutional responsibility not only to authorize policy, but to ensure that it is carried out faithfully. Secretary Hegseth has repeatedly demonstrated that he cannot be trusted to full and faithfully execute the authorities that Congress entrusted him.
Yeah, this lady, I like this lady. She's speaking some truth right here. Yeah, Pete Kegsbreath is just an incompetent fool. He's nothing more than like a Fox News analyst.
The greatest threat to our military readiness is leadership that mistakes political loyalty for military excellence. A Secretary of Defense who spends more time fighting culture wars than preparing for real wars is weakening this force that he swore to lead. He has purged experienced military leaders for political reasons. He has pursued ideological crusades inside the Pentagon. He has sidelined military expertise.
Oh yeah, Pete Hegseth, his like pastor, he's like a big time white supremacist with these like radical like views on life. And that's Pete Kegsbreath's pastor. And Pete Kegsbreath was getting that pastor to like get our military to like do prayers with them.
Injected instability into an institution whose very success depends on discipline, on professionalism, and on trust. Congress should not provide a hand-sweeping new authority to a secretary whose own actions have repeatedly undermined confidence in his ability to lead. Oversight is not obstruction. Indeed, it is our constitutional duty. If the committee is not willing to adopt a full implementation fence, I urge you at a minimum to require meaningful guardrails or certification before these provisions are taken effect. Fourth, Amendment 1193 restores the annual influenza vaccine while preserving medical waivers. Readiness starts and ends with healthy troops. We have already seen the consequences of abandoning long-standing military health policy. Since this policy was enacted, nearly 300 influenza cases have been reported at Lackland Air Force Base alone, and these numbers only continue to grow. Now the Pentagon is scrambling to create exceptions to their ban on vaccines and workarounds to restore protections it never should have abandoned in the first place. Instead of this confusing patchwork, restore the very straightforward policy that protected our force for decades and ensure that every recruit enters service healthy and ready. And finally, my amendment 1336 establishes a commission we already spoke about with my colleague, Mr. Sessions, of emerging technology. As he mentioned, China is not slowing down in AI and biotech and autonomous systems or advanced manufacturing, and neither should we. Congress needs a bipartisan independent mechanism to identify where we are falling behind, where we need to invest, and how we preserve our technological edge before our competitors gain one. Every last amendment that I propose here today comes down to one question and one question only. Will this NDAA make our military stronger and more ready to fight and win tonight? If it makes our military stronger, we should adopt it. If it advances ideology instead of readiness, we should reject it. I respectfully urge that the committee make these amendments in order. I thank you and I yield back.
Thank you, General H. General A yields back. Now recognize Mr. Moylan for his.
Chairman, Ranking Member McGovern, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. While I respectfully ask the committee makes all my amendments in order, I would like just to focus on two during this limited time. First Amendment 432 and the second 113. Amendment 432 removes language in the bill which would require the War Department to deploy and operate a transportable nuclear microreactor in Indo-PACOM by January 1st, 2030. This is a policy the Pacific Islands community has nearly unanimously opposed. And my amendment is co-sponsored by members of Hawaii, the Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa. Pacific communities agree we should not assume the risk of testing new technologies before the rest of the country is willing to assume similar risks. Our voices cannot be an afterthought. They need to be included throughout the process. Speaking as Guam's representative, the Guam Power Authority, GPA, must be consulted prior to the new energy policies. Unfortunately, what we see today is GPA is being directed what to do from thousands of miles away, if not sidelined entirely. I want to thank Congresswoman Takuda from Hawaii for her partnership on this amendment. She has constantly worked with me on issues of shared concern for Guam and Hawaii, and I know this is an amendment she is uniquely passionate about. As she mentioned during the markup, the status of force agreements in Indo-PACOM would mean that microreactors would be deployed on American soil in the Pacific. In other words, one of our islands. I support a strong military, robust supply chains, and national security strategy designed for us to win. But I have never backed down from my position that the military buildup in Guam must not come at a cost of our island. It must be done right. Policies that deny our people the right to object or properly consider such huge decisions do not happen with us. They happen to us. So I respectfully urge the committee to make this amendment in order and allow the full House to consider the merits of such a proposed program. For the second amendment, I also ask the committee to make 113 in order, which would establish a first look period for businesses in the joint regional Mariana area of operations to bid on local contracts. Too often, defense contracts in Guam and Northern Mariana Islands are snatched by large nationwide contractors who are very good at bidding for contracts, but very bad in performing work in the Western Pacific themselves. These companies scrape their profits off the top and subcontract to local businesses. The result is taxpayers are left holding the bag while mainline companies get richer and do little to none of the work. This problem extends even to sometimes as simple as catering. A company better at bidding wins and contract and then simply subcontracts the entire job to a local company. Talk about broken. Now, my amendment takes a simple approach to fix this problem. Let the people actually doing the work get the contract. If we do so, it cuts the middleman, invests directly into local economies and workforce, and cuts bloated contracts. That means more funding for war fighters, improving their quality of life, or doing more for less, and strengthening our national security. I look forward to answering any questions. Thank the committee that the committee may have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and now recognize Mr. Stolber for his time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ranking Member McGovern. I want to start by thanking the committee for your consideration on my amendment number 761 to the National Defense Authorization Act. I also want to thank Representative Begich for his support of this amendment. My amendment addresses a concerning reality that is one of the greatest threats to our national security: Communist China's chokehold on our strategic supply chains, including for critical minerals. Currently, Communist China controls roughly 80% of our critical mineral supply chains. We are net import reliant on China for roughly 31 critical minerals, and the CCP has taken advantage of this reality over the past several years by banning the export of certain minerals to the United States that are used in key defense technologies and our equipment. This is a direct attack on U.S. national security and our defense posture on the world stage. There's no doubt that China will continue to exploit this vulnerability, which would be devastating to America's security across the world. That is why it is critical that we begin to invest in domestic capabilities to unravel ourselves from this dangerous web. My amendment is simple. It requires a Secretary of Commerce and Secretary of War, along with several other agencies, to identify all supply chains in which Communist China maintains a global market share exceeding 50% of global production or processing capacity for the relevant material, component, or product. Further, these entities must develop a plan to diversify each supply chain they identify, which will help inform the United States and our allies as to what steps and which investments we must make to retake control of these supply chains. The reality is that we have offshored critical defense and manufacturing capabilities to unfriendly nations for too long. But it doesn't have to be this way. America can control its own destiny if we begin to invest in our domestic workforce and industries, including the domestic mining sector. And that includes responsibly developing the vast mineral resources our country is blessed with, including the Duluth Complex in northern Minnesota. It's a win-win across the board. We can develop these minerals domestically under the strictest labor and environmental standards, support domestic jobs and our economy, and lessen China's grip on America's national security. And a great first step is by taking full inventory of our supply chain dependence on Communist China and developing an actionable plan to ensure our strategic supply chains and our national security is decoupled from foreign adversarial nations. I urge the committee to make my amendment in order, and I thank you for your time, and I stand for questions.
Gentleman yields back. Indications from Ms. Hutchins that she has no questions, so I now recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for being here. I hope your amendments are made in order. It's great to see Mr. Sessions again. Julianne, I thank you for all of your amendments as well. Again, I hope they're made in order, and I have no questions. I yield back.
And now recognize Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Lake.
I would associate myself with the ranking member's remarks. Thank you.
Now recognize Ms. Ledger Fernandez.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to address Representative Moreland's bipartisan amendment. It also has Representative Kuda. I come from a place where we tested the nuclear bomb, and we tested it in the Pacific Islands. And to mandate that there be nuclear reactors before we know whether they're safe, before we are willing to do it on our own mainland, I think is wrong. I think encouraging it, incentivizing, those are different things, but to mandate it. So I'm very particularly sensitive because I've been to the Pacific Islands and they've raised this issue. They've suffered the pain. We have a multi-billion-dollar compensation fund going because we did take care before we started doing nuclear testing. So we should not repeat the mistakes of the past. So thank you very much, Representative Moreland. And Representative Glenn, you put it precisely correct. Will this make us safer? And refusing to grant promotions, refusing to treat women and Black Americans and others with the same merit and respect does not make us safer. Thank you for agreeing to that.
Gentlelady is back. Gentleman, Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott has no questions. Thank the witnesses for being present and thank you for being ready to answer questions. Give them time to clear out. Our next panel will be Mr. Luttrell, Ms. Garcia, Mr. McDowell, Mr. Smith, Mr. Turner, and Mr. Goldman. Give them a minute to come up and take a seat. Trell, Garcia, McDowell, Smith, Turner, Goldman. Okay. We'll start with Mr. Luttrell. Morgan? It's always good to have one Morgan recognize another Morgan.
And there's three of us in Congress, oddly enough. I've never met another male Morgan in my entire life until I got here, so it's always been a pleasure to work with you and Mr. McGarvey. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member McGovern, and the rest of the members on the committee for this opportunity to talk about my amendments that I would like to add to the National Defense Authorization Act. First of which is Amendment 81 that extends a currently authorized Walter Reed trial studying psychedelic assisted therapies on traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress through September 2033. And then Amendment 714, initiating biomedical outcomes to garner advancements into innovative efficacy. In the better part of 15 years, I would say, thousands and thousands of our veterans have been traveling outside of our country for psychedelic assisted therapies for a myriad of issues, whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, cognitive motion instabilities, or addiction, whether that's alcohol or drug related. And for the past 15 years, we've been begging and pleading with ourselves to support this. Because currently, the studies that are being conducted inside the United States are small in places like Johns Hopkins University and Stanford University. The state of Texas, the state of Mississippi, and the state of Kentucky, amongst some other states that are trying to pass legislation individually to support these medications, is great. But I often ask myself, why can't we do this? Why is it the United States government coming in to support our veteran community? And the results that we're seeing in these studies are profound. And this medication, when given under very restrictive guardrails, is absolute. And you can't argue that. I've gone through the journey myself, the treatment, excuse me. My brother has gone through the treatment. My wife has gone through the treatment, and it's been life-changing. And these amendments allow the Department of Veterans Affairs with FDA and HHS start moving the needle forward so we don't have to talk about the 6,000 plus veterans we lose a year, the 100,000 to suicide, the 100,000 civilians we lose to suicide because of opioids and SSRI addictions. And I haven't been here in Congress that long, but my research before I showed up says that this is a move that we should absolutely take. So sitting at the table today, I will not drop to a knee and beg and plead with you to do this, but as a veteran myself, I ask us to stop looking around the corner and kicking the can down the road and do something profound for our veteran community. Madam Chairwoman, thank you and happy birthday.
Thank you, Mr. Luttrell. I'm sorry you're not going to be
I think that guy was on mushrooms.
in Congress. You know that. I feel that way.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I don't know if I should say how happy I am that I'm leaving, but I appreciate that.
Ms. Goodlander, would you like to join us since Ms. Garcia had left and her name was called? taking her place.
Turn on your microphone, lady.
Thank you so much. Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
My first two amendments really go to the core of how we in Congress must ensure these 1.5 trillion taxpayer dollars are being spent responsibly and transparently. That's why I'm supporting Amendment 1006, a straightforward amendment that says no funds will be expended from under this authorization to fund the president's war of choice in Iran unless Congress has declared war or authorized that war. We have learned the lessons of recent history. When we write a blank check for a war of choice, it has cost us gravely in American lives and in taxpayer dollars. So this common sense amendment will bring power under our Constitution back where it belongs, here in the People's House. I have a separate amendment, Amendment 955, that would likewise go to the core of the First Amendment protections that are so urgent for our national security and public safety. Not a single taxpayer dollar should be used by the Department of Defense to restrict the free and independent press. What we have learned in the last year and a half is that when the leadership of the Pentagon goes to war with the free press, our jobs in Congress become infinitely harder. We need to ensure that the independent press is able to do their important work at the Department of Defense. This goes to the core of oversight and transparency upon which all public trust depends. So I urge this committee to rule these amendments in order and to allow them to be debated on the floor. I'll just add three more areas where I believe taxpayer dollars must go. The first is to pay our troops. And Amendment 1057 would adopt the Pay Our Troops Act into this National Defense Authorization Act. Not a single service member of this country should ever be forced to work without a paycheck. And that is what our bill would correct this wrong and ensure that moving forward, our service members are not at the whims of congressional debates, that when they raise their right hand to serve this country, they will be paid for their service. In the middle of an affordability crisis, our men and women in uniform should never be asked to work without a paycheck, and our bipartisan amendment would right this wrong. I'll conclude by urging your support for Amendment 327. This would close gaping loopholes that have prevented our public safety officers, the survivors of fallen officers, and injured officers who have put their lives on the line and been killed or injured in the line of duty. Last year, we made some very important steps forward to make sure that the Public Safety Officer Benefit Program operates as it should. This amendment, 327, would close loopholes and right wrongs that have stood in the way of our fallen heroes and their family members from receiving the benefits that they have earned. So I urge your support on that. And I urge all of our colleagues to support the Major Richard Starr Act. It is on the floor of the House right now as a discharge petition. It's the most bipartisan bill before the Congress right now, and it would right an important wrong by ensuring that we pay our combat injured veterans who have been forced to make an outrageous choice between the benefits that they've earned and their retirement pay. This bipartisan bill would right that wrong. We can get it done even before we get the NDAA done. And with that, I yield back, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodlander. Mr. McDowell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and happy birthday to you. I have 7 amendments that are under consideration to the NDAA, and want to thank the committee for their consideration for each of them. But given the limited time, I'd like to briefly discuss 2 of my amendments. I'm proud to say that both as standalone bills have bipartisan support. Amendment 758 would add the text of my bill, the Preventing Rogue Equipment for Synthetic Substances Act, or the PRESS Act, to the NDAA. I'm especially proud to have worked closely with the DEA to craft the PRESS Act, which will address an issue that's deeply personal to me. I lost my younger brother, Luke, to the fentanyl crisis. And I vowed to do everything that I could to help end this epidemic in our communities. And the PRESS Act targets one of the key tools that foreign drug traffickers rely on to manufacture counterfeit pills: pill press and tabulating machines. By stopping the importation of illegal pill press machines, we can disrupt the production of fentanyl-laced narcotics before they ever reach our streets. We must strengthen federal law to target the equipment the cartels use to mass produce these deadly counterfeit drugs. This is a national security issue. Many of these machines are smuggled across our border by our global adversaries. It is like a slow drip nuclear weapon that is taking out men and women that are 18 to 45, our military age men and women at an incredible clip. Fighting this poison, it goes beyond party lines, and we must ensure law enforcement has the tools that they need to stop illicit drug manufacturing and save our lives. The other amendment I'd like to highlight is Amendment 745, adding the text of my bill, the Foreign Robocall Elimination Act, to address the flood of foreign scam calls that so many in my district receive. By providing the resources needed to strengthen interagency coordination and build on the TRACE Act, we can better combat illegal robocalls originating overseas. These bad actors target millions of Americans every month, attempting to steal sensitive personal information such as social security numbers and banking information through sophisticated scams. I think we can all agree that we don't need foreign robocalls in our lives. With that, Madam Chairman, I thank the committee for their consideration of these amendments, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very brief. I do have 7 amendments. I'll just highlight 3 very quickly. The first is the Stop Forced Organ Harvesting Act. One of the atrocities that's occurring in this world today, especially in China, is that young people are having their inner organs stolen by the government. In the case of China, it's 60,000 to
Hey, that's insane. That's pretty sad right there. So they're stealing organs over there in China, huh?
100,000 organs per year, mostly from the Falun Gong and the Uyghurs. But the military is absolutely involved in this in China. There's an estimation that 43 military hospitals are engaged in these illegal transplants. They strap a guy down or a woman equally divided between male and female. They take out at least 2 organs per victim. And if you're in the military and you need an organ, you'll get it from one of the people that is now the subject of a genocide, like the Uyghurs. It's outrageous. The Taliban are involved in all of this and other places around the world. There's definitely a military connection. It passed 406 to 1 last year, and the year before that, it passed with a similar margin. And as Mr. Scott said earlier today, so much of what we do goes over to the Senate and just dies in languages. This has an opportunity to save a lot of lives. I'll go into detail if you'd like. Then there's the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which we named after Frederick Douglass. That passed in 2 Congresses back to back, never went anywhere in the Senate. And I would point out that 26 years ago, I authored the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. And when we did it, it's a comprehensive effort to stop sex and labor trafficking. It has made a major difference. But we found when we did the first reauthorization that many militaries are involved, peacekeepers are involved. I went to Goma and then held a series of hearings and did some work to try to stop the UN peacekeepers from raping little children. So there's definitely a connection for this bill. Finally, the third one is the Stop Support for UNRWA, UN Relief Works Agency. In the last Congress, I chaired 4 hearings on UNRWA and anti-Semitism. Bottom line, they have aided and abetted Hamas like no one else, and many have died. People say, well, what are you going to do for those who are suffering in Gaza? Well, the administration has made sure that the World Food Program, for example, got an obligation of $250 million, and there's other obligations as well. We need to get it to a non-anti-Semitic organization. And again, UNRWA has aided and abetted all of these crimes for a year. 70 individuals were just fired by UNRWA. That's a tip of the iceberg. I hope that you'll make that one notice.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Turner, I said I would distribute these notebooks. I would have distributed them.
I'm sorry, I was on.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. You're recognized.
Madam Chair, happy birthday. The
The books that I just distributed, I distribute because they're part of what my testimony is. That's why we've done that. I apologize. And to the who's ever serving as ranking member, members of the Rules Committee, I'm here to testify in support of the amendment number 730 to the fiscal year 2027 National Defense Authorization Act that would restore the pension benefits of the Delphi salary retirees. And I respectfully ask this committee to allow it to be attached to the NDAA. This amendment has the support of the President, the Speaker, and the Chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. In 2009, as part of the taxpayer-funded GM bankruptcy, more than 20,000 Delphi salary retirees and employees had their earned health and pension benefits terminated. For many, their pensions were cut dramatically, in some cases by as much as 70%. There is no precedent for what happened. The government terminated their pensions as part of a TARP government-funded, government-led GM bankruptcy and bailout. The government only terminated their pensions. Everyone else had their pensions restored. Many members of Congress have worked with the Delphi salary retirees to right this wrong. The Special Inspector General for the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or SIGTARP, was asked to examine Treasurer's decision-making related to Delphi. The findings were deeply troubling, and that's the binders that you just have. If you go to the first tab in your binder, you'll see that SIGTARP, the IG, reviewed the decision-making and found that, and there were hearings on this in the Oversight Committee, that found that the Delphi salary retirees were found to have had no political leverage or no leverage. SIGTARP found that while other workers' pensions were topped up, the Delphi salary retirees' pensions that had been fully funded prior to the bankruptcy were treated differently because they had no political or bargaining leverage. We highlighted for each of you the language that was there. This is the heart of the issue. This was not a private pension plan failing on its own. This was the federal government making decisions that picked winners and losers among workers at the same company. Never before or since has the government caused the termination of pension benefits for one group of workers, especially when those pensions were more than funded, simply because those workers lacked political leverage. This is why it's wrong to call a fix for these retirees a pension bailout. It's not a bailout, it's a remedy. It is Congress correcting a wrong caused by government action. There is no precedent for the government doing this. This is an injustice. After the pension termination, the Delphi salary retirees pursued every avenue available to them. They went to court but were unsuccessful. Then they turned to the executive branch. In October 2020, President Trump issued a presidential memorandum. That's item number 2 in your binders. In that memorandum, he directed the Secretaries of Treasury, Commerce, and Labor to examine what actions could be taken to make these retirees whole. In 2022, the executive branch determined that legislative action would be necessary. That means Congress is now the last and only path for restoration. Most recently, this legislation has also earned the support of the White House and was included in the administration's supplemental appropriations request. That's number 3 in your tabs. With bipartisan support in the House, support from members of this committee, and support from President Trump, now is the time to finally right this wrong. This bill has previously passed this House, has been amended to reflect changes to address concerns faced in the Senate. I ask the committee to allow this fix to move forward. I ask you to stand with the workers who kept their promises and deserve to have their promises made to them kept as well. I also ask you to give these retirees the opportunity to finally receive the retirement benefits that they earn. These are grandmothers and grandfathers that can't pay their bills, where government is the fault, not theirs. Many on this committee have voted for this in the past. Again, President Trump campaigned on this 3 times. He's asked this committee, and he has the full support of the Speaker and of the author of this bill for this to be added into this bill. President Biden also campaigned on this. I ask you to add this to this bill. Thank you, Madam Chair. And Thank you, Mr. Turner. Thank you. Mr. Goldman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy birthday, Member McGovern, members of the committee. Today I speak in support of my amendment number 1306, which seeks to expand on the successful and bipartisan work of the Supreme Courts In the FY24 National Defense Authorization Act, Congress took a significant step to establish a special presidential envoy for the Abraham Accords, a Senate-confirmed ambassador-level position focused on expanding and deepening the normalization agreements between Israel and the neighboring states. My straightforward amendment updates the special envoy's mandate to include Central Asia and the South Caucasus states, including Kazakhstan, Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. My amendment doesn't require any new funding. It explicitly requires the envoy to use existing programs and authorizes already on the books. This amendment is about directing diplomatic energy where we are already paying toward a broader strategic opportunity. I'll also note that this policy has strong bipartisan support. My underlying bill, H.R. 9147, the Abraham Accords Expansion Act, is supported by every co-chair of the bipartisan House Abraham Accords Caucus, including Representative Wagner, Schneider, and Wasserman Schultz. The Abraham Accords are critical to promoting greater peace in the Middle East. This amendment gives us the tools to extend that vision further, building directly on a foundation Congress itself created. I urge my colleagues to support the amendment. I yield back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Does any Republican wish to ask any member of the panel any question? Ms. Hampton, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Congressman Luttrell, I wanted to commend you for your amendments and ask you a couple of questions about the potential for the therapies to help us transition away from some of the more costly and long-term medications that we're currently using for drug addiction in America, most notably methadone treatment, and how psychedelics, in your experience, might be able to be a shorter term but shorter term solution, but a longer term fix for this issue is question one. And then you mentioned the states are starting to engage in trying to advance psychedelic brain therapies, but that it is important that there are very restrictive guardrails around this use of therapy. And so second question is, wouldn't it make more sense from a federal standpoint, from a safety perspective for the patients who are engaging in the therapies, for the federal government to play a role in setting these guardrails and setting a framework for to make this accessible versus having 50 different ways to do it in the states?
There's always, yes ma'am, thank you for the question, Sasha. There's always 50 different problems and 50 different solutions. I think the federal government and the states themselves need to run in parallel with this. I think educated conversations from our brilliant scientists, neuroscientists, clinicians from the state and the federal level can set those guardrails. The countries outside the continental United States have been doing this for a while, and I think conversations with them here and Texas was very open about those conversations. I think that they're in a really good place. I hate to say, can we get there? I hope so. This place, the stage of the states. As far as results when it comes to highly addictive, I'll speak specifically on heroin. There's now longitudinal studies that say treatments with ibogaine, those that are addicted to heroin, it is an 85% success rate with the first dose of medication, and then over a 90% success rate if there's a second dose given, which sometimes is not. And that is a single dose. This isn't a methadone prescription. And the Institutes of Higher Learning and Education and the scientists abroad are taking a very hard look at that. And I hope that one day if we can align ourselves and all the government institutions and states aside to see what this is doing and pay attention to it, that we'll absolutely get to where we need to go. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I really commend you for the work that you're doing on it, and talking about your own experience and that of your family in successfully undergoing the treatment. I also would love to see us move away from and really actually help people get their lives back than to just put them on another medication that they have to take long term. So thank you for your work on this, and I'll be supporting your amendments.
Mr. McGovern,
Thank you for being here and hope your amendments are made in order. I yield back.
thank you. Anyone, Mr. Langworthy?
I just want to salute Mr. Turner for bringing forward the cause of the Delphi salaried employees that were so terribly treated in the restructuring of General Motors. I mean, many live in my district, and this has been a sadly almost a decades-long fight now. So thank you for continuing to work for them.
Thank you so much, if I may. So this comes to you with the president's support to be in this bill. The president's legislative team has been working with this committee. The speaker supports it being in this bill, as does the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. And in the past, you have voted for it. Thank you for your support. Also, Scott has voted for it and is, of course, a sponsor of the amendment. The ranking member has voted for it. Ledger Fernandez has voted for it. This is one of those issues where there is no precedent. There has never been a situation where a decision in the White House has solely singled out a group of workers in a company and had their pensions terminated and taken away. Their pensions. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Thank you, Mr. Langworthy. Ms. Cameron, no questions. Mr. Scott?
No, I thank you all for coming. Mr. Turner and I worked together on this issue. There was a battery plant in Fitzgerald, Georgia, where the salaried employees lost their pension. And I'm certainly supportive of the amendment. And Mr. Luttrell, hope this isn't your last meeting before the Rules Committee, but I hope it is successful. Either way, I know a couple of people who have actually left the country to go seek treatment, if that's the right word for it, and have been very well served by that. And with that, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, no questions. Thank you. Sorry. Mr. Griffith? No, Mr.
I
Jack?
just want to commend my freshman colleagues, Craig Goldman, Aston McDowell, for your testimony today. Look forward to supporting. Yield back.
Mr. Turner, are you aware that your amendment has a point of order against it and the Rules Committee does not waive points of order on amendments? Yes, we're looking forward to you considering waiving the point of order with the support of the speaker being waived and the president having supported it being on this. You have both if I may, you asked me the question. If you have the author of the bill in front of you, you have the speaker who appoints this committee, and you have the president who will be signing the bill, all asking for it to be in this bill. Anyone else have a comment? The committee stands in recess until immediately following call for the last vote. Thank you all.
All right, so they're going to recess, but I think let's see what happens here. Let me fast forward it a little bit to where they come back. Usually they come back pretty quick. All right, so it looks like they're on recess. We'll fast forward it. All right, here we go. We're back. So went a little too far. All right, here we go.
Okay, the committee will reconvene. Thank you all very much for being so patient. So, Mr. Whitesides, Mr. Carter, Mr. Underwood, Mr. Burleson, and Mr. Mast. And Mr. Mast told me, unfortunately, he could not come back because he's on the floor. Warren. Mr. Davidson, join us, please. So I think you all know the drill. Your full statements will be put into the record. We ask you to keep your verbal comments to 5 minutes. I will call you out in order that I called your name before. And the committee looks forward to your comments. Mr. Whitesides. Thank you, Madam Chair, and happy birthday. I'm here today to talk about my bipartisan amendment that supports DoD efforts to protect our military installations by tracking changes in conditions and natural resources that may threaten the infrastructure of bases across the country. We saw this at the Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton in Southern California when 3 wildfires burned over 15% of the base, posed a risk to service members and disrupted Marines' ability to operate and train. Wildfires like the one at Pendleton and Vandenberg are a year-round national crisis and a threat to military installations everywhere, including in and around my district. If we can use existing technology to collect better data and identify trends, we can protect more installations from natural disasters like wildfires. My amendment does not propose a new program. The department is already doing this work through its Natural Resources Program. That program is actively working to preserve military readiness by improving ecological conditions, and I applaud these efforts. My amendment encourages the department to enhance this work by simply standardizing their metrics and promoting the use of cutting-edge technologies, which would allow us to work alongside interagency partners and appropriate state agencies to get better, regular, and consistent data on military installations. That information would then be used to identify and address risks that will benefit military installations across the country. Importantly, this data will also allow the department.
Hey, what's up, Madame? What's up, Aloha Kitty? What's up, Robert? What's up, Drew? What's up, Frog on Rock? What's up, Donna? Martz? What's up, everyone? Yeah, thanks for everyone that's hanging out for this marathon of a hearing. We're more than halfway through it, but there's still quite a bit to go. But it's been pretty interesting nonetheless, and it's always enjoyable hanging out with everyone in YouTubeville. So happy Monday to everyone out there, and hope you're all doing well.
Demonstrate when conditions on an installation are moving in the right direction, which will allow us to then reward that performance with less paperwork, faster approvals, and more efficient reviews. I urge this committee to support this amendment and include it in the NDAA. Thank you, and I yield back. Thank you very much, Mr. Whitesides. I said Mr. Carter, but he's not.
Oh yeah, and this happened today, Monday, June 29th, so it's fresh.
Ms. Underwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Ranking Member McGovern. I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk about my bipartisan amendment, which is co-led by Congressman Fitzpatrick. The text of our amendment is identical to the NIH Improve Act, which recently passed the Energy and Commerce Committee unanimously. The United States has the highest pregnancy-related death rate of any high-income country, and Black women are dying at the highest rate of all. And the crisis is only getting worse. Over the past 2 decades, maternal mortality rates have doubled, more than doubled, and disparities have worsened. What's both frustrating and promising is that over 80% of these deaths are preventable. That's why I have long advocated for focused and robust funding for maternal health research. This has led to the creation of the Implementing a Maternal Health and Pregnancy Outcomes Vision for Everyone, or IMPROVE initiative at NIH. Since 2019, Congress has increased funding for IMPROVE 9-fold. IMPROVE has so far invested more than $200 million in life-saving research that will help end our nation's maternal health crisis. Right now, this critical research program lacks a sustained funding source, threatens its mission to save lives. My bipartisan amendment, the NIH Improve Act, would authorize consistent funding for this existing program for the next 6 years, providing NIH with the support and resources it needs to understand and address the root causes of America's maternal mortality crisis. Friends, we have an opportunity today to actually solve the problem. We have a chance to prevent maternal deaths and improve health outcomes for women before, during, and after pregnancy. This legislation is common sense, it's bipartisan, it's part of the omnibus, and most importantly, it would save lives. If we want to make real strides to end our nation's devastating maternal mortality crisis, we need to pass it now. Thank you again for the opportunity to work together on this urgent issue. American moms need our help. Let's get this done. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Underwood. Mr. Garamendi, I think we can include you in this panel if you would like to come up. Mr. Burleson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
I'm here to present to this committee for your consideration a bill that is extremely bipartisan. That is Amendment 1044.
Is your mic on?
It is.
Okay.
I'll try to speak more directly into the Amendment 1044. The American people deserve nothing less than full transparency on unidentified anomalous phenomena. Through President Trump's leadership and initiatives such as the Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters, otherwise called PURSUE, the president has signaled the era of secrecy must end. What was once dismissed is now the subject of serious congressional and executive attention. This amendment before us, the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Disclosure Act, is a comprehensive bill that's in the style of the bill that Congress passed, the JFK Records Release Act. It is built upon that framework.
How about the Epstein files release?
Will finally bring accountability. Members of this committee, the UAP information belongs to the American people, and transparency is a simple step towards restoring public trust. For too long, records concerning UAPs have been scattered across agencies, shielded by contractors, or lost to time. The president has changed this. He has championed historic progress toward genuine disclosure, declassification, and transparency. Congress needs to support those measures now. And my amendment does so by strengthening the national collections at the National Archive for one simple reason. We will make the records open source and available for public inspection. This is not optional. It is a direct commitment to ending fragmented control and giving the American people one clear, trustworthy repository. The amendment before us creates mandatory timelines. Every federal office must identify, organize, and transmit its UAP records within 300 days. No records may be destroyed or altered. Previous disclosed records cannot be reclassified or redacted. This is the kind of decisive action that the American people have demanded. Concrete steps that close loopholes and move us from rhetoric to results. The amendment before us embodies the principle that has been established by this president. It requires agencies to conduct thorough reviews, create identification aids, and transmit records with clear documentation of any postponement. From our investigation that we've already conducted, we have found that meaningful transparency requires us to look beyond our traditional government channels. Significant UAP-related information resides with private contractors, specifically the federally funded research and development centers. And this Disclosure Act explicitly includes contractor-held materials and closes the oversight gaps that have frustrated many previous efforts. This amendment creates strong safeguards as well. It establishes an independent UAP Records Review Board, a 9-member body appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate with full subpoena power and access to all records and facilities and the authority to conduct hearings. Again, the American people deserve the truth, and with this amendment, we can deliver it, and I urge your support for this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burleson. Mr. Davidson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the Rules Committee, and happy birthday, Chairwoman. I appreciate the chance to emphasize one amendment I'm offering in particular. It's an amendment 1223. It is also known as HR 425, which is titled the Repealing Big Brother Overreach Act. It repeals the Corporate Transparency Act, which was enacted in the FY 2021 NDAA in order to combat illicit finance. But it was written too broadly. It requires millions of Americans small business owners to report the beneficial ownership of their companies. And it's sweeping. So this Congress, as chairman of the Subcommittee for National Security and Illicit Finance, we've had extensive hearings on this. The courts have already issued injunctions pausing it because just today the Supreme Court held that a geofencing location for your geolocation data from your phone was too broad. And so they said you have to get a warrant. This is far broader. The presumption is if you own a business, you must be engaged in illicit finance. So it's had problems in the court. And for that reason, the Trump administration halted the application of the previous administration's rule. And they said, we're going to more narrowly apply it to foreign ownership interests. And that's what this does. The Trump administration codifies that policy so that FinCEN can focus on genuine national security concerns. This was brought into this world through the NDAA, and it's fitting that we bring it out through the NDAA. This bill has 40
40 co-sponsors on the amendment, and 193 co-sponsors on the act. Massively supported this reform, including from the Trump administration. So, along with all the amendments I've offered, I would plead with the Rules Committee to give us a vote on this amendment. And I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Mr. Garamendi, you're recognized.
Happy birthday. I've got to cuddle up to the mic. Let's see if I can get this straight. There are several issues that are going to be in the NDAA that are out there. First of all, the SHIPS Act, which I'm sure Mr. Trent Kelly has brought to your attention. It is a significant national security issue. To be able to put that into the National Defense Authorization Act would very significantly strengthen the various elements that are already in it. Beyond that, I want to speak to you about a couple of other things. The Titus has an amendment 40, and that's for nuclear testing. There's been increasing discussion that we really need to light up some nukes and let them explode so that we understand all of the ins and outs of it. Not necessary and really a very, very bad thing for us to do. Therefore, the Titus Amendment 40. And I would also bring your attention to Luzio's Amendment 634. He and I dealing with stock buybacks. This lines up with President Trump's executive order about the defense industry spending a good deal of its money buying back stocks rather than investing in plant equipment and personnel. Also in the NDAA, there's the one of my amendments, 975, dealing with the national nuclear security agencies and the cost overruns. This moves it closer to the method that we presently have within the defense industry when there are cost overruns. It sets up a special system to review why that's happening. This would go almost as far, but not quite as far as that system. And finally, Amendment 1351, which would prohibit the NDAA funds to reconstruct or to use in any way the demolition and the eventual ballroom on the east wing of the White House. There's some talk that the president's looking for ways to pay for it. We think that the use of military funding for that is inappropriate. So those are the amendments I wanted to bring to your attention.
So I skimmed through this hearing, and there's really not much left to go on because, like, check it out. So for the next, like, hour or two, it's just, they're, like, on recess. So it's, like, pretty much over. But let's see what they say at the end here. They're just wrapping up. Let's see what Jim McGovern says real quick.
Written budget. Her amendment was made in order and subsequently passed on the House floor with both myself and Chairwoman Fox voting for it. Unfortunately, her thoughtful proposal never became law. But let's not give up hope. On her birthday, let's help her. Let's give her a gift. And I believe that a strong majority of the House would support this amendment. It was a good idea then. It's a good idea now. And I urge a yes vote on my motion to ensure that Chairwoman Fox's proposal gets an up or down vote on the floor, and I yield that.
The amendment proposed is completely outside the jurisdiction of the House Armed Services Committee and lacks an appropriate nexus to the Department of War. This amendment process is consistent with those of the last three defense authorizations. Any amendment made in order should be tightly wound to our national security and the appropriate jurisdiction in the House. Clever try.
Well, but didn't you offer it to the NDAA in the past? It was made in order?
Yeah, this hearing's pretty much done. Let's see. Yeah, all right. Let's go check out
88-84 when it comes across. Help me get the Dems in the Senate to support it.
Let's go check out Donald Trump's Oval Office speech real quick before I dip out. Let's go see what this is all about. All right, so this is a speech Donald Trump gave earlier on June 29th. All right, guys, so keep in mind everything that comes out of this orange man's mouth is nothing but utter lies. As you all should know already. All right, so this is titled President Trump Signs Executive Orders June 29th, 2026. All right, here we go.
Guys are ready. Let's go down. Well, thank you very much. We have a big ruling that we're just issuing now. It's I think it's very important. It's going to lower the price of your car. It's going to lower the price of fixing your car. Has to do with affordability, has to do with a lot of things. You know, oil prices are way down. We hit $69 today. It was higher than that prior to the denuclearization of Iran fight that we have, which we're doing very well. There'll be a meeting on that tomorrow in Doha. And they're going to Qatar. I think they've already left, or they're just about getting ready to leave. So we'll see how that goes. But we're doing very well on that front. But the meeting in Doha is going to be perhaps important, perhaps not. We're going to find out. But we're winning militarily. It's almost won militarily, I would say. And it's really very simple. It's the denuclearization of Iran. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon, and they're not going to have a nuclear weapon. And they've agreed to that in all fairness. This is something that's very exciting to me. And if you bring the bill, and I'm going to let Lee explain exactly what it means, but it means a lot to people that own vehicles, cars in particular, but cars and anything else. It's going to save them a lot of money, and they're going to be able to do it themselves. Please.
Mr. President, this is a presidential memo to the Environmental Protection Agency, a presidential memo supporting the freedom to fix. Americans have the freedom to fix their vehicle. President Trump insists upon it. We are not going to be going after people who are fixing their own vehicle like past administrations have. Additionally, we've been concerned, President Trump has been concerned about aftermarket parts, cheap knockoff aftermarket parts coming into the United States, harming small businesses, harming Americans. This presidential memo puts an end to it. Also, the only third-party certification for these aftermarket parts is CARB in California, a process that's backlogged and faulty. So we're going to break that monopoly, and no longer will CARB be the only third-party certifier for these aftermarket parts. Again, President Trump is insisting on fixing it. This presidential memo does that. President Trump was calling me up on a Saturday night when this idea first came to his head, and he says he wants to do a press conference right away to get this over the top. In February 2nd, we signed a right to repair for our farmers so that they can repair their tractors and their non-road equipment, and this is covering everyone else.
I mean, think about it. It came to my attention because I noticed they were arresting people for fixing their car. They were arresting people for fixing it.
Dude, Trump, you're arresting people for touching their reflecting pool. You're out of your mind, Trump.
Unbelievable. Anyway, so it's right to fix, and I think it's really common sense. If somebody wants to fix, some of these people are better mechanics than the mechanics in the shop. They're telling the mechanic in the shop how to fix their car or their truck. We signed the truck one a little while ago. So I'm going to sign this, and I'll be happy about it. We rule by common sense to a large extent. All right, Lee, good job. Thank you.
Sir.
Okay. Can you imagine that? They want to put you in jail if you fix your car.
That signature looked like the same signature that was in Jeffrey Epstein's birthday card.
Thank you, man. Do you have any questions?
Mr. President, what do you make of the Supreme Court ruling today in regards to the mail-in ballots, and what comes next for the SAFE Act after today's ruling?
Well, because of the mail-in ballot ruling, which was a little bit surprising, gives people more time to vote illegally, let's say. But the SAFE Act is even more important, and it's the right, you have to be a citizen of our country. Okay, you have to show you're a citizen of our country, called citizenship. Voter ID.
Hey, what's up? Your dad is Satan? No, we gotta watch Trump and call out his bullshit in real time.
Photo voter ID, and no mail-in ballots unless you're in the military, disabled, you're ill, or you're away, or even on a vacation. We'll be very open about it. It's pretty easy. And we'll have honest elections. But the ruling, which a lot of people were waiting for, that was a ruling that was, I think it was very detrimental to honest elections. But it is what it is. Basically, they're keeping it a little bit the way it is now. They may have a little bit of a restriction on based on the wording. And then you have the very important one, the Slaughter case, which we'll talk about if you ask that question. But the parliamentarian, what were you asking about?
Yeah, have you talked with Thune about?
I have. No, I can't imagine why you keep a woman that was put there by Harry Reid and Barack Hussein Obama. I cannot understand it. The leader has the right to fire the person at will and put somebody else there. That could be, because we get so many negative rulings from her, the parliamentarian. She's been there for years, and she was put there by Harry Reid and Barack Hussein Obama. Harry Reid was a bad guy, and he was the leader, and he put her. And the speaker has the right to immediately fire her and put somebody else there. And it's not even believable that she's still there. She's obviously a good politician or something.
Mr. President, question on the Slaughter case. The Supreme Court just affirmed your right to fire the heads of the defendant agencies. Should we expect more fires as a result of this ruling?
I don't think so. It gives me the right, and not me, it gives a president the right to do what the president should have the right to do. And it's very interesting. It's a big ruling. It's been going on for almost 100 years. They've been working on this, and that it comes down at my term is a very great honor. But it bestows additional powers, or maybe the same power, on the president. The president has the right to do this, and that has to do with a lot of agencies all throughout the system. So it's considered, the biggest of the group, and I can understand that this has been going on for almost 100 years. They've been waiting for this decision. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. You were posting about how important it is to get the Save America Act passed. Who do you see as the biggest hurdle to getting this across the finish line?
Well, it's held up in the Senate. And frankly, if you terminated the filibuster, you just need 50 votes, and we have 53. And then you have JD. So the Democrats are going to terminate the filibuster. But if you did reconciliation, you could do it with 50 votes. I mean, the best would be to terminate the filibuster, but for some reason, but you have the same basic people. But even Rand Paul is in favor of the Save America Act, if you can believe it. Think of it. Rand Paul is strongly in favor. He's fighting for it. So that's good news. But you would have Lisa Murkowski always against things like this. Nobody knows why. I think I know why. But you have Lisa Murkowski, you have Susan Collins, you have Tillis is against, and he's not in office because of me, so he holds me, because I wouldn't endorse him. I think you have Senator Cassidy against it too.
I think he supports it.
And I think you have Mitch McConnell against it too. Mitch McConnell, who's very disloyal to John Thune. John Thune was a very good person for him. I mean, he was a very loyal person, and Mitch McConnell's against him almost all the time because he's angry, I guess, probably at me.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
What about Democrats, Mr. President? You think you could change their
Well, the
minds?
Democrats should do it too. I mean, you probably get one Democrat who's, common sense Democrat, who that is. And everybody should go through this. This is the Save America Act. Voter ID with photo, ideally, but voter ID, proof of citizenship, and no mail-in ballots, which is, to my way of thinking, maybe the most important of all because it's so corrupt. But you have exceptions if you're away, exceptions for the military, they're deployed, exception, illness, disability, you have exceptions, strong exceptions. But the cheating on the ballots, the mail-in ballots, Jimmy Carter said it a long time ago. He said you can't have mail-in ballots. He headed up a committee with Scoop Jackson and others, all respected. And he actually, I think it was Jimmy Carter's finest moment, not doing president, but he headed up a committee and he said he came out with a strong conclusion that if you do mail-in ballots, there's going to be cheating. France gave it up. We're the only country in the world that does this type of mail-in ballot. There's no other country in the world. You know why? They tried it and it was totally dishonest. And it's really dishonest. So we shouldn't do mail-in ballots. So it's not too much asked for voter ID, proof of citizenship, and no mail-in ballots. And you'll have honest elections.
What are your plans for the housing bill, Mr. President?
I don't know. I think it's so unimportant by compared to the Save America Act. I think the Save America Act is exactly what it says. It's saving America from crooked elections. And the housing bill is a bill that can get approved. They worked on it long and hard. It's very bipartisan. That means the Democrats like it. I think it's maybe even it's probably maybe more that way they're getting things that I wouldn't necessarily agree to. Nobody knows more than housing in the history of the presidency. Nobody did well like me in housing. I made a lot of money. I made a lot of money with housing. But when I look at that bill, it's a bill. But when I look at the Save America Act, it's about saving America. And I'd like to have this.
Yeah, because you're a slumlord. You guys ever seen that movie, The Super, starring Joe Pesci? That's like, that movie was probably based on Trump right there.
And that's probably not going to happen because we have 4 Republican senators, maybe 5, that just won't vote for it. It's crazy. Somebody, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. Nobody's done more for Alaska than me. She's Trump deranged. What can I tell you? But those 4 or 5 people that I mentioned should vote. How do you vote against Save America? How do you vote against it? How do you vote against voter identification or proof of citizenship? The only people that would vote against that are people that are going to cheat in an election. The Democrats need it because their policy is so good. They want open borders. They want high taxes. They want terrible medical.
Yeah, Trump's so full of crap in his diaper, it's coming out of his mouth.
Anything medical. I'm the one that did favored nations. I'm reducing drug prices by 200, 300, 400%. Nobody even talks about it. The news doesn't talk about it. The Democrats are opposed to it. If they get into office, they'll put it back. Your drug prices are going to go up by 200, 300, 400, 500%. You know that.
But will you sign that housing bill?
I have not. It hasn't been sent to me yet. It's coming. I understand, and then I'll make it. Here's what I would like to say. Much more than a bill. That big deal. It's a yawn. Some people say it's wonderful. To me, compared to the Save America Act, just about everything is a big yawn.
Nah, you're a big yawn.
Birthright citizenship is next. What are your thoughts? Birthright citizenship, what are your thoughts? And will you accept if it rules against you?
Well, I guess I have to accept it's the Supreme Court, so I'll accept. I think it's very bad for our nation. We're the only nation that does it. No other nation does.
Actually, there's about 40 nations that do it.
Birthright citizenship? No, it's not even close. Some did it, they ended it. It's tremendously destructive. It's extremely costly. I don't know, it's up to them. But in terms of for the good of the country, it'd be great if they didn't allow it. It would be great. But I can't tell you. The Slaughter case was the big case today. That was really a big case because it gave strength to presidents and strength to the presidency. A very important case. It's been going on for almost 100 years. Think of that. And this was the ruling that really topped everything by a lot today. Yeah.
Mr. President, Zafar Mamdani said in an interview this week that he was open to being the poster child for socialist candidates. Are you worried about more socialist candidates across the
Well, I think it's a big threat to our nation, actually. Because it's not socialism, it's really communism.
No, you're the communist, Donald Trump. You're the one that rolled out the red carpet for Putin.
Social democrat, because it sounds so nice, but it's really communism you're talking about. I think it's the biggest threat to our nation.
No, Trump, you're the biggest threat to the nation.
There is, maybe since our founding. That includes World War I, World War II,
September 11th. It includes the Pearl Harbor attack. I think this is the biggest threat to our nation. People will smile.
This guy's out of his mind. He's trying to say it's the biggest threat than like World War II, World War I, 9/11.
But the smart people are going to say, he's probably right. It's basically introducing communism into the United States of America. There's never been anything so dangerous. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
Wow, what a clown. All right, let's go check out a real patriot. Let's go see what Gavin Newsom has to say. Let's go see what a real man has to say over here.
AI technology. In short, we need to do something urgently in this country to address the radical imbalance.
All right, so this is Gavin Newsom from today.
Fortunes in America. Something is fundamentally broken if we can mint $1 trillion overnight, but millions and millions of people go.
This is MAGA cult member's new daddy right here. Gavin Newsom.
We need to do something urgently in this country to address the radical imbalance of fortunes in America. Something is fundamentally broken if we can mint $1 trillion overnight, but millions and millions of people go without health care. If a truck driver pays a larger percentage of his income in taxes than a factory owner. I spoke recently about the need for a national billionaires tax, about ending corporate tax loopholes, about making sure working people benefit from the boom in AI technology. In short, we need to democratize our economy if we're going to save our democracy. Today, I want to tell you about what we've done here in California on these very issues. And I want to take a moment to also challenge a myth that simply won't go away. It's been peddled in this country for decades and decades. And it goes something like this. You have to choose between being fiscally disciplined and doing big things. Pick one, they tell you, but you can't have both. In California, where I'm from, we reject false choices. We have one of the most progressive tax structures in America. And our budget, it's balanced. Our rainy day reserves are full. And we think big, really big. Over the past 8 years, we've built great things for the people of California. Some of the boldest actions of any government in this country that has been taken in a generation. And we did this without breaking the bank. We did this by design. I just signed my final budget as governor of California, on time, balanced, and structurally sound. Not just this year, but through June of 2028. For the next 2 years, California will have a $0 deficit. We're leaving the state in good hands for the next governor. Since 2019, the state's economy grew from $3 trillion to $4.25 trillion. That's a roughly 40% growth. No other jurisdiction, not one in the United States, came close. In 2025, California attracted nearly 2/3 of all venture capital invested in America and nearly 40% of all venture capital invested worldwide. California, we dominate. We have no peers. And California thrives because we've laid the foundation for one of the healthiest economies in the world with intentionality, extraordinary schools, universities that feed into world-class research labs, and unicorn startups, new manufacturing, small businesses supported by California tax credit and boosted by a career pipeline we developed and we've nurtured. And now here's the part again that cynics don't want you to hear. We did all of that, again, balancing the budget, but at the same time, we also paid down long-term obligations, some $15 billion in long-term pension debt. We're carrying nearly $30 billion in total reserves, and closer actually to $40 billion counting the surplus account. We could have spent every dollar this year and called it a victory. We didn't. We left a runway for whoever comes next, because that's what responsible government does. And we did something else big. In recent days, working with the legislature, we reached an agreement to place a constitutional amendment before the voters to expand California's rainy day fund. We're expanding our reserves, at the same time allowing the state more flexibility to pay down those long-term liabilities and protect our state's fiscal stability well into the future. But fiscal discipline isn't just about what you do at budget time. It's also about, how government works every day in every department. That's why I launched an initiative here in California called E3, Efficiency, Effectiveness, Excellence. The premise is Quite simple. Government should work better, work faster, and cost less for the people who pay for it. We've been cutting outdated regulations, consolidating duplicative programs, modernizing the technology that Californians use to interact with their government, saving taxpayers dollars across every department. Washington, they made a spectacle out of efficiency, slashing programs without thought, firing veterans, gutting agencies that families depend on. Well, we've been doing real work here, methodically, without the chaos, without the theater. So when people ask, well, where did the money go? Let me tell you exactly where it went. We made school meals free for every single child, breakfast and lunch, no forms, no stigma, no shame. The first state in the nation to do it, and we're keeping it. We created universal transitional kindergarten, a fully funded grade for every 4-year-old, saving thousands and thousands of families money each and every year. We boosted funding for our public schools from about $17,000 to more than $28,000 for each student in every classroom. That's a 60% increase. And this year we passed the largest special education investment in state's history, $2.4 billion more in a single year. We expanded healthcare coverage, drove the uninsured rate, get this, down to 5.9%. That's one of the lowest in the United States. And I want to pause on that for a second. Texas, just another big state, has, as an example point of contrast, 16.7% of its population without health insurance. 5.9% California, 16.7% in Texas. Texas is the highest in the country. That's not fiscal discipline. That's just, respectfully, cruelty. California rejects these false choices. We led the nation in community schools, a revolutionary idea that has transformed literally hundreds and hundreds of campuses across California with rigorous academics, tutoring, healthcare services, as well as counseling, all on one site, producing measurable academic improvements. We led the nation in after school for all and summer school for all, programs benefiting more than 1 million students, programs other states only talk about. We funded at scale. We've created 130,000 free and reduced cost childcare slots. That's the largest expansion of childcare in the nation. Thousands more in the budget I just signed, saving parents thousands of dollars a year. We made the biggest infrastructure investments in modern California history. Let me give you a proof point. $109 billion are at work today. $109 billion. That's part of a $180 billion 10-year plan without precedent in California. Roads, bridges, water, transit. We've connected as well the state with the largest broadband investment we've ever made. We all know this. A kid without an internet connection is locked out of the future, whether she's from Compton or the Central Valley. We built the clean energy future in real time. A record-breaking two-thirds of our electrical power now comes from renewable and zero carbon sources. In the last 7 years alone, we've added 32 gigawatts of clean energy capacity. To put that in perspective, that's roughly a third of all the power California has ever built since the 19th century, a third of the total in just 7 years, proving that you can power one of the biggest economies in the world, clean the air, and fight climate change at the same time. We're also sending up to $60 billion in utility rebates back to Californians, funded by our Cap and Invest program, not a tax on family, a fee on polluters, distributed back money going directly to working families to lower the cost of their electricity bills. Climate policy and affordability policy, the same policy. We built the largest aerial firefighting fleet in the world, invested in cutting-edge technologies, equipment, and firefighters to help knock down the next big fire when it starts. We led the largest expansion, bar none, the largest expansion of mental health and drug treatment facilities in the nation, helping families in distress and keeping people off the streets. We've moved to close 5 prisons, 5, while crime rates have plunged to near record lows. And we've made record-breaking investments in California's colleges and universities. You may not know this. 65% of our UC and CSU graduates now leave debt-free with a world-class education. We've launched CalKids, making every kid in California eligible for a college and career savings account, a head start in the cost of higher education, or starting a business. 5.5 million Californians born with a stake in their own future.
Yeah, Gavin. The camera angles that Gavin Newsom does are a little much, in my opinion. I think he needs to stick to like one camera angle.
A service corps, larger now than the Peace Corps. And we've expanded apprenticeship programs for hundreds of thousands, over 600,000 people now training for great paying jobs. We've raised the minimum wage. No state comes close to $20 an hour for fast food workers, $25 an hour for healthcare workers. We expanded paid sick leave. So every Californian has at least 5 days. We expanded paid family leave in May.
Dang. Sounds like Donald Trump. Sounds like Gavin Newsom's done more than Donald Trump's done in 2 terms of office.
Taking time to care for a newborn or a sick parent doesn't lose her paycheck. And we put in place the strongest and most comprehensive statewide renter protections in America. We capped increases. We made it the law in California that no landlord can evict a tenant who has paid her rent and followed the rules for no reason at all. Just cause. That's what other states call it. We made it the standard because in this state, we believe the roof over your head is not a luxury. It's the foundation for everything else. We took on the housing crisis where it actually lives at the supply side, streamlining reforms, permitting reforms, zoning reform. We made it easier in California to build. And since 2019, residential construction in California has grown by 59%. We're building more homes faster than we have in a generation. We've also made historic investments to confront homelessness. Across California communities with the new 2025 counts, unsheltered homelessness fell nearly 10%. It's the biggest drop in more than 15 years in our state. Even, by the way, as homelessness has risen all across America, and at least in more than half of the states. Count those up. Free meals, free pre-K, free childcare, record school funding, healthcare, infrastructure, broadband, clean energy, utility rebates, higher wages, paid leave, renter protections, more homes built, debt-free college, a savings account for every kid. That's government that believes in itself and balanced its budget every step of the way. Because here's the truth. Balancing a budget and doing big things take the exact same skill. Both demand the long view. Both demand telling people the truth about costs. Both demand the nerve to invest today in something you won't get credit for until tomorrow. We've been told for decades that austerity is discipline. It's not. Austerity is a failure of imagination dressed up as a virtue. We choose differently. We choose to be responsible and bold, to honor the dollar and honor the dream, to balance the books and to keep the big dreams. I'm not telling you all of this to brag about California, though I'm proud. I'm telling you this because for 40 years, in this country, we've been told that government can't deliver, that public investments don't work, that progressive ideas never pencil out. Well, California, with all due respect, is proof that all that's wrong. We did it here, and we can do it everywhere. We did the math. We did the work. We did the big things. And so to every other state across our country, to Washington, D.C., to anyone who's been told that responsibility and ambition, they can't share the same balance sheet, come to California. Look at the numbers. Look at kids. Look at the kids eating breakfast. Look at the work. We can have it all. We're proof.
All right, so that was Governor Gavin Newsom from doing a statement today. Let's go see what else we got in the algorithm. I don't think there's really much, actually. I think that's about it, guys. I don't know. There was Raphael Warnock did like an interview, but I never got to see. But yeah, I think I'm gonna hit the hay. I appreciate everyone that hung out. See what happens tomorrow, but just wanted to catch up on what happened today. So thanks for everyone that voted. It looks like a whopping 63% of the people say that Trump is nothing but a con man and a fraudster. Yeah, that makes sense. It checks out. Hey, thanks, Daryl. Appreciate it. Hope you have a good one. Later, Robert. Later, Michael. I just noticed you said hi, but I gotta say bye. Later, Bug 101. Thanks for pulling up and saying what's up. What's up, Diane? Hope you have a good Tuesday out there. Yeah, everyone. Hope you guys all have a good Tuesday. You know, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. There's, you know how it goes. Every day there's something new. So we'll find out soon enough. So I'll catch you guys all later. All right, peace out.